All right, you're live.
All right, we're back in open session for our meeting. We just finished our executive session. Before we get into the superintendent search presentation, just two pieces of news. So this is our last scheduled meeting before December 23rd, which is when the former superintendent Carol Costello retires. So there you go. And also congratulations to the football team for winning their straight Super Bowl this year, right? So good stuff. All right. Anything else you want to say about that?
Yep, absolutely.
But can't let that go unnoticed. So let's bring up superintendent search presentation. Lori, do you want to introduce us?
Yes, we have two different people here. We have Ms. Tracy Novak. Novak is going to present first from the MASC. And then we have Mr. David, is it DeRusi? Is that how I say it?
Yes.
And Mrs., oh my goodness, Ms. Judy Palucci. They're here from NESDEC, and both sets of people are going to explain to us how they would run a superintendent search. Because this time we're going to do a full search, and we'll see what they have to say.
And we apologize, Tracy Novik, for the spelling of your name on the agenda.
So good evening, it's good to be with you. Thank you for inviting me to be here. My name is Tracy Novik. I managed to speak to a number of you and met some of you in the past. I'm the field director for Central Massachusetts for the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. And that actually brings me to my first point regarding the superintendent search. I mean, obviously, any decision that you need to make really is a question of why would you choose one organization over another organization. And the thing that I think is actually most important in terms of you making the decision and the determination as to what you want to do is that MASC is already your organization. You are why we exist. MASC is a member-organized, member-driven organization. We were originally formed by members who felt that there was a need for a statewide organization of school committees to provide them with professional development, to keep them appraised of legal and policy changes that were happening at the federal and national level. And our services thus have just simply evolved in terms of what school committees actually need from us. And regardless of what choices you make, as again, a number of you already know, MASC will remain your organization. You have a field director. I'm your field director for Central Massachusetts. There are 4 of us across the state. A significant part of our job is actually responding to members' questions, emails, phone calls. On a daily basis, there's a significant part of my time that's actually simply devoted to that. And the professional development that we provide to school committees across the state, the emails that provide information, policy updates, and so forth, will continue to come. And so that support, I think, is something that's actually very important. We, of course, are all at the association, because we are the Association of School Committees. Our focus is on the school committee and the needs of the school committee. All of the field directors are either current or past school committee members. As some of you may be aware, I'm a former member of the Worcester School Committee. My colleagues either are currently serving or have recently been on school committees. And that is the perspective that we bring to the superintendent search, which I think actually matters quite a bit. We also bring the perspective of someone who is not sort of coming to your district without any background in your district, right? I live in Worcester. I'm from Central Massachusetts. I actually grew up in Sterling. Well, this is, I think, the first time I've been in this building. It's not the first time that I've been in your school district by any means. And I think that actually matters quite a lot, because part of what we see superintendent searches as doing is really, first of all, being an opportunity for a school district to really strengthen itself. It's a chance for you to look at what you're doing well, to look at what you could be building on, and to see the search as a process through which you actually expand upon that. One of the things that I think of superintendent searches as doing is actually being an opportunity for us to also strengthen our relationship with you. And so when I say that we staff a search, school committees, of course, are the ones who direct the search. That's usually me. And that means that I'm the one who's actually conducting the survey. I try to make sure that I get into every faculty meeting and actually in front of your staff, meet with your central administration, conduct the public information centers myself. I think that matters quite a bit in terms of my then being able to bring back good information to you. work directly with the screening committee. It will be me unless there is some sort of unavoidable conflict, in which case it will be one of my colleagues who also is a field director. And similarly, there for the interviews, working with you in terms of making sure that your questions are good, doing a solid job of making sure that you have a good ability to get insight into the candidates that you need, making sure that you have an opportunity to visit their district, they have an opportunity to visit your district. And then, of course, regardless, again, of what you choose in terms of your search process, MASC doesn't go away. So we are always available for completing a search. For us doesn't actually end until you have a signed contract. But of course, we then also encourage you to do things like have a retreat with your new superintendent. Make sure that you are on the same page in terms of setting goals for the superintendent and goals for yourselves. Making sure that you considered and come together around operating protocols, that you're on the same page in terms of things like the open meeting law. New superintendents are a really good chance for strong professional development of the governance team. And we, again, that's part of what you get from us already because you're members of the association. We think of that being as a really important part of the process. I've kind of walked you through this already, but this is really more or less what a search looks like for us. We do make sure that we sign a contract. What you're looking for is entirely included for the cost of the contract. The only thing that would be an exception is if for some reason you decided to advertise in the Boston Globe, and frankly, we would tell you not to do that because it's kind of a waste of money. So we make sure that we are on available for staffing to make sure that you have everything that you need at every step along the way. And one of the things that I emphasize, certainly to the school committee, but then also to the search committee when I'm working with them. But then also I share my contact information with the larger district because the one thing that I want to make sure is that they always know what the next step is and they actually always know what's going on. And I share that. The thing that I always share with teachers is my own experience as a former teacher. I was an educator. I remember getting an email from my central office saying that the superintendent was retiring, and that was in the fall. And then the next thing that I remember hearing about it was that we were all being invited to this lemonade party in the high school courtyard and to meet the new superintendent. And I will swear that I was someone who read all my emails, but I don't think I heard anything in between. And I don't think that's a fair position to put anybody who's in a school district in. And so that's something that I always strive to make sure doesn't happen to the staff or anyone else in the school districts where I'm doing a search. And so really, at the end of the day, our relationship with you is something that we highly value. It's something that we think is crucial for us as an association, but also us as field directors to have healthy working relationships with our school committees in our districts. And so obviously the search is actually really all about that. We're really about making sure that you find the right person for where your district is at this time. There is no perfect candidate and perfect district. What there is people who actually fit each other's needs. I'm happy to take any questions.
Go ahead, if anyone has any questions.
Tracy, could I ask you to put it back to that, the slide that had the different phases?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Like that?
Yes.
Certainly. And by the way, I'm certainly happy to share this with you.
Tracy, while they're looking at that, can I ask you what searches are currently MASC is doing right now, or which ones that you're involved with as well?
So the one search that I'm involved with right now is Winchendon, which has announced its finalist and is in the sort of that latter stage of the process at this point. I know that Braintree is announcing finalists tonight because one of my colleagues was just updating me from there. I know that Mashpee and something else on the Cape, because my boss has been spending most of his time driving to the Cape. We've had a couple of, we're just sort of starting, we think of superintendent search as sort of two seasons. There's the people who kind of do the fall season, and then there's the people who do the spring season. We're just starting to get the notifications from the people who are doing the spring.
Thank you.
So far, I don't have anything for the spring for what it's worth.
Following that idea, what is the typical timeline look like?
So, I mean, let me start by saying that we can be flexible. I will say that, I generally, if you are kicking off a search now, so first of all, I wouldn't do anything prior to vacation for what it's worth if you decide today. Mostly because it's a lovely and exciting thing, but I don't think anyone's paying that much attention to it at this time of year. But I like to jump right in with gathering information. So if we were doing that, say in January, I would anticipate that you would be bringing it all together, assuming that we don't have a very snowy second half of the winter, by probably April. I want as much as possible for my spring searches to come in well before the end of school so that there's time for a transition. There's time for the person who's coming in to really have their feet under them in terms of what the next year's budget's going to look like. Ideally, if there still are town meetings or what have you going on at that stage of the game, that's wonderful. But I want them to actually be a presence who's known in the district rather than sort of like an email as people are going out the door.
Does anybody have any other questions?
So Tracy, as I was going over some of your materials and even looking at this right now, it sounds like MASC does a lot of the work, a lot of like the behind the scenes work, and the committee basically reaps the benefits of that, whereas we don't have to vet the references and like I noticed even things along the lines of like you tell the successful candidates or those that aren't, you're the one that breaks the news.
We make the unhappy phone calls, yes.
And you do the reference checks and things like that.
And one of the things actually that I will say is also a benefit of having the association do it is because we are in nearly every district across the state, like just about every school committee in Massachusetts is a member. We do have working relationships with almost all districts. And so when I get in a list of applicants, which by the way are confidential, but they're confidential within the office, the first thing that I do is I share it with the other field directors and with our executive director and say, okay, what do we know? Because I want to know whatever the stories are. I want to know whatever the reputations are. If there is a story to know, I want to know what the story is. So I want to make sure that I'm walking into your search committee who have then reviewed all of the applications with all of the information that's at the association's disposal, which tends to be fairly wide. But yes, we are always happy. I mean, if school committee members want to make reference calls once we get there, that's entirely fine. But certainly all of the sort of compiling applications, making sure they're accessible, working with the search committee and making sure they have their questions answered, and just generally being available, putting together the interview questions, making sure you have access to good draft interview questions if you want them. All of those are things that are part of the job, yes.
Can you say a little bit more about phase one there, focus group surveys, and what other community stakeholders would be involved and how would they be involved?
So, I mean, the first thing I will say is that it is entirely up to you. If there are particular ones that you want to make sure are involved, but that's entirely up to you. I do always make sure, so we now, as a matter of course, will post a public survey, and I will become almost annoying to your administration in terms of asking them to please share that as much as possible. One thing in particular that I really encourage, I mean, everyone thinks to put it in the parent newsletter and they usually get to blast it out to faculty. I really encourage sharing it with students as well. If you think students don't have opinions about administration, right? But I also know that not everybody's going to fill out a survey. And so something that I have found, so I've been doing this job for 10 years. Something that I have found is really important in terms of getting the read of the people who work in the district is to be at your scheduled faculty meetings and ask for 10 to 15 minutes. Because if I just show up in a school and say, I'm in the library, teachers don't have time for that. Like they need to go to the bathroom, right? They need to make copies, they need to get their lunch, they don't have time to talk to me. If it's part of what they already are scheduled to do, they're more than happy to share. And that also gives me an opportunity to give them a sense of the search. I also try to do the same thing with central administration. And ideally, if I can get the secretaries, the custodial staff, school nutrition, I have been with all of those people in the past. Again, people who have real insight. I like to be able to meet with student council if possible. And then one of the things I ask you all is for your best read on how to do the public input sessions. So you may have a community where nobody's going to come out to a meeting and you have to do it online. I know in regional, sometimes people feel it's really important to make sure that you hit every town. Happy to do that. Whatever it is that needs to be done there. I also, in the past, have met with town administrators, which first of all is not a bad kind of political move, to be a little bold about the statement. But they also have insight in terms of what is the district doing well from their perspective, and what do they need to work on in terms of that perspective. And of course, we know those relationships matter. So those tend to be, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Those tend to be the main things that I do. And then of course I share my contact information widely and say, if you think of other things, send me an email, get in touch. And all of that then comes back to you. The things that I share, first of all, we say that we come back with a leadership profile, which essentially is, here is what your district needs at this point, which would then go into the application or the brochure once you approve it. But the other thing that I report back is essentially, I was on a school committee. Anything that I heard that I think you should know, I make sure I bring back to you. And that's really what I mean in terms of it being an opportunity for you to kind of do an internal assessment without it being a strategic plan or all that kind of thing. If I'm going to go ask people what the district is doing well and not doing well and what they need to work on, you should know that, right? That's information you can use.
I have one question just based on that. You mentioned something about, going out into the communities and speaking to the parents. I've received a lot of emails from parents who very much want to be involved in the interview process. Mm-hmm. And there's just no way to. And
they all can be.
Right, for everybody to be there. So what,
Yes.
what I'm curious about is hearing how you speak to parents, how we can let voices be heard. You talk about do you do like a presentation or?
And let me also add that, again, it's one of those where if you have very active PTOs and think I should go to the PTOs or should go to the site councils, I'm happy to do that too. So when I speak to those groups, it's sort of two halves. The first thing I do is, as I said, I don't want to ever leave anyone in the position of wondering what's happening next. So I say, so here's what you need. So here's who I am. I am not choosing your superintendent. Your school committee is. Here's what my job is. But here's what the timeline is, to your point, right? Here's when you can expect things to happen. One of the things that I think that school committee would understand, but sometimes the general public does not, is that there's a period during which things kind of go quiet, right? So like there's this big thing, I'm everywhere, I come talk to you, you approve the application, and then it kind of feels like nothing happens. Well, that's because we're collecting the applications. Then the next thing that happens is an executive session, there's screenings. So, those meetings will be posted, but there's not going to make any headlines. It isn't until the search committee comes back to you with the finalists that anyone hears anything again. So I try to make sure that people are clear in terms of that, it isn't that anybody forgot, it's not that nothing's happening, this is the way that it works. And then the three questions that I ask when I do an input session in person. I ask, what are the strengths of the district? What did this district do well? What do you brag about? What do you want to make sure they continue to do? What does the district need to work on? What do you hope that they stop? What are they weak on? What do they need to actually continue to do work on? And then what does the district most need in leadership? Because most of us who aren't directly involved in either superintendency itself or school committee work couldn't necessarily tell you what a superintendent does, but most people can tell you what the district needs in terms of leadership, and those are really my three questions. And I do it whenever I'm doing it in a group, in a larger group. I do it on sticky notes because that way it isn't only the loudest voices in the rooms that get heard. We make sure that everybody gets a chance to put their things up. And then I take all of that information back along with the information we gathered from the survey and put it together in our report for you.
Jess.
Yeah, so I see the search committee mentioned in phase 3.
Yeah.
Are they also involved in phase 1 kind of informally or more formally?
No, so what would happen is that you would be deciding really during this period of time what it is that you wanted for a search committee, sort of how many people, who you wanted to make sure was represented, what the balance was. That's a school committee decision. And then also the second part of that is then if you have these designated seats, how do those get allocated? How do you decide which elementary school parent gets it, which teacher gets it? So that is when that happens. while the files are coming in, one of the things that MASC does is we always make sure that we train our search committees before they meet and before they have applications. While you're familiar with the open meeting law and confidentiality and the state code of ethics, that's not something that necessarily your search committee is going to be. So I meet with them for a training prior to them doing anything else so that they have all of that information. They sign a statement of confidentiality, they're familiar with the conflict of interest law. Those who need to file a declaration do that at that point. And then we put them through open meeting law training, particularly because most of their meetings are going to be in executive session and they need to have an understanding of how that works. And then they've already done that by the time the applications then are all compiled and they get shared with the search committee confidentially via electronic means.
Final question, going once?
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take a few minutes for the groups to switch up the rooms. All right.
Thanks, Tracy.
You got a laptop?
No.
Okay,
What is this going to be?
all right. Go ahead if you're ready.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. We're going to probably share some information that's very similar to MASC. My name is Dr. Judy Paolucci. I'm a former superintendent and I'm now a staff associate with NESDEC. And here is David DeRusi.
My name is Dr. David DeRusi. I am the Executive Director at NESDEC. This is my second year as the Executive Director here at NESDEC, and I have put 34 years, 33 in Massachusetts as an educator, everything from special ed teachers as superintendent in 2 districts, 1 year as an interim in New Hampshire, and now I'm fortunate enough to be here working for NESDEC. So, Judy will be a lead consultant on this, so I'll let her do some of the talking. We've given you a folder. It's just a very simple outline. We're going to walk you through it, what a search through our company would be like. The proposal you received was for a guided search, and I think the only difference between comprehensive search versus the guided search is focus groups. But we'll talk about that when we get there, so I'll let Judy start. We're just going to kind of tag team this, so if you have any questions, stop right in the middle. You'll hear it very similar than not, so there you go.
Okay. So first, I hope you notice that throughout the whole outline, you'll see a lot of communication. I think that's the key to a good search. The search is your search. We are assisting you with that search. So we start with a meeting for planning and organization, setting a timeline, expectations for when things will happen. And we support the development of that timeline, but of course, how you want the search to proceed is up to you. There's also national and regional publication of the vacancy. And one thing NESDEC has that many organizations don't have is the reach. Generally, we reach not only the New England states, but even beyond. So we set a publication of the vacancy both regionally, statewide, regionally, and nationally. And so many people who are looking for a superintendency will periodically go to our website, but also receive outreach from us. So there's a lot of communication.
So a little bit about NESDEC. We're the New England School Development Council. So NESDEC's been in business for, I think we're in our 78 year. So we have a wide reach. We run from Connecticut to Maine. We're also members of the National School Development Council. I sit on that board, so that gives us reach even right into the New York, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut area. So when we're posting for your application, your future candidates, we send out to all of those agencies. So we will send them to New York, we will send them to Connecticut, we'll send them out, as well as our affiliates and our constant contact members, which right now number close to 6,000 contacts from, like I said, Connecticut all the way up to Maine. So when we put a posting out for you, it goes out. And we've had candidates as far as Singapore, part of an application. I completed a search in New Hampshire last year, Kearsarge, New London, it's a regional, and they ended up hiring somebody from Missouri. So when your posting will get out, we'll give it the coverage it needs.
In all reality, you'll probably have more candidates from Massachusetts. However, with having the wider reach, you'll get to see candidates and interview some candidates that are maybe further away. And you'll know at the end that you really have the best candidate possible. So as far as advertising goes, we do the advertising for you. So there's School Spring, it's a very common place for people to go for who are searching for a superintendency. But there's also Top School Jobs, that's the end week publication, AASA online announcement, National Alliance of Black School Educators, Association of Latino Administrators, and then a professional diversity network. So we have a lot of means to get the news out there. Certainly, through a search with NESDEC, no one in the region will not know that you are looking for a superintendent.
Another piece we will work with the school committee on is developing the application letter. And we feel that's an important part for the liaison of this search with us, because you get a chance to highlight your community, your school district. You're basically going to put the letter together so that if I see a posting for the job, I'm going to be able, as a superintendent who's interested, look at that letter, learn so much about where you are as a district, and then the idea is you're selling me to say, hey, this is a great place, come here and work. And that's something we would work with the school board. Anything we do with you is through the board, the committee, approved by the committee, so we don't make any decisions with regards to outreach. What the voice of the committee is the voice of the committee. We will help you put it together, we will help package it, you approve it, we put it up.
Okay. So in addition to the advertising that we'll do, we have a constant contact network. And so this information goes out to just a wide variety of people across the state and region. As David said a little while ago, the proposal you have in front of you is for a guided search. We can expand that to also include focus groups. That is totally up to you. But I have had experience with focus groups. You get a lot of very good information from those focus groups. We would sit down with you at the very beginning to decide who should we be reaching out to, what type of information do we want to gather from people, and what the timeline for that would be.
In the electronic survey we use, we started, you'll have access to that through this proposal. We're seeing an uptick in responses to the online surveys. We, much like other agencies, we start off with two basic questions. What would you like to see in your next superintendent? What skills, what traits? And then we usually ask, the next question would be, what would be, in the first 6 months, what would be some of the challenges and tasks? But then the online survey also has places where you can put in their open-ended questions, responses, and the way we break it down, it's an anonymous survey, but we can grab how many teachers respond, how many parents respond, how many administrators respond, and we pull all that together, give that to the committee to review, it's yours to have. But also, if you had made the decision to All right, we could use that survey, maybe 1 or 2 focus groups, that you can pull together a candidate profile out of that. I helped a smaller district in New Hampshire. They did the survey. I sat with their liaison. We looked at it, and they built their own profile off that survey. We just found, I had the liaison, we worked it out. She sent me the bullets. We went back and forth, and she basically helped build their own candidate profile.
And then during the time when applications are being received, we are the folks who potential applicants will call if they have any questions. We hold on to those applications, but at the same time, we're in constant communication with you. So if you have questions about, how many applications have come in so far, what does it look like, have we had a lot of response? The communication is ongoing. And so you'll have our telephone numbers. We'll be probably speaking to at least a contact person on the school committee every single week during the process.
And again, we put a lot of emphasis, and it's the most difficult part of the search, comes down to the screening committee. So we would help you navigate those waters, would help you decide how many you'd like on that school committee, screening committee. We will meet the screening committee prior, we will meet post afterwards. So how that works for us really is work with our liaison, we send the information. We have all of this in ginormous number of templates. So if you need the letter to recruit people for the screening committee, we have different examples. We give that to you. You make it yours, you put your name, you send it out. So the screening committee, we recommend anywhere between 9 and 12 is manageable. I did a search last year with 22. That was that was cumbersome. But again, so we help you with that. We will train up that screening committee. We'll come in person, train them, walk them through the confidentiality laws, rules. We leave it up to the district. Some searches that I've been involved in, they will bring a clerk from the town side with 1 sheet of paper, review confidentiality rules, have everybody sign off. Some districts have their own policies, which we'll review at that meeting with them, sign off. The confidentiality piece is big. But that first meeting, what we would do is come in, because you've got a different group of stakeholders. We recommend you look for positions, not people. So you definitely want someone representing the teachers. We always advocate maybe a union president, a vice president. You want an administrative voice. You may want a PTO parent voice. You may want the special ed parent group. So you look at positions, because you're right, you're going to get inundated. Everybody will want to be on it. The goal is to get a collective stakeholder voice. You have different opinions at that table. We collect all the applications. What we will do would come in that first day, train everybody, the liaison, Judy, we'll be working together. But when we leave that first day, we do this a little different. Each member of that screening committee has access to our link and a password to see all the applicants. You may say, why would you give us all the applicants? NESDEC in its history, we wouldn't screen for you unless you asked us to, because I'm not sure what you may think is really paper, this is a person, this paperwork looks great, versus you may say, I like this one, and I may say after 33 years of whatever, I don't think any of them fit. So that would not be our job. Our job is to give it to all your screening committee members. Individually, they go through them. We have a tool where they can rank them. So after you look at Dave on paper, you have the ability to click on a survey that comes to us, nobody else. 1, definitely want to see Dave again. 2, somewhat want to see Dave again. 3, not interested in seeing Dave. So that work is done by the screening committee. Individually, they do that work. Then we come back for the second meeting, which is scheduled. And what we would have for you is the ranking of how everybody on that screening committee individually saw each candidate. Now there's the real work, there's the deliberation. So you see the top 5, and then it's like, how many people do you want to bring back to screen? And we work through that. I have seen that work where somebody that might be in the middle of the pack gets moved to the top of the pack because of the deliberation in the room. I've seen people at the top drop a little, but that's the work of the screening committee. We're there to facilitate that. It's your search, your candidate pool. We want you to make the best choices. Screening committee, at the end of that, will then say, we want to see these 8 people to interview. We do the happy calls, we do the not so happy calls. And we deal with all of that. We'd work with the committee to set up a schedule. And then screening committee goes to work. Screening committee will decide who they want to move forward. Once again, we would have all the reference checks on our end, meaning make sure their paperwork's in order. Reference checks go either way, I agree. Sometimes school committees want to be part of that. Sometimes they don't. We have a process to help make that easier for school boards to do the reference checks. But again, that's up to you. It's your search. I think it's a valuable piece to break up. If you have 5 finalists, share amongst the school committee, give each one, because we'll send them out, we'll collect the data based on, give the references for parents, staff you work with, administrators. So they'll send us 15 of those. And I think it's valuable for the school committee at that point to each split some of the work up, because then we each get a feel for the candidate. So when it does come time after the interviews, and you're trying to decide who's the next superintendent, you could turn around and say, well, I checked the references, the parents had a lot of good things to say. You could say, I checked the administrators, they had so many, and the staff, and then that's the deliberation. So again, we can go either way with that. We could screen them, check them, but I think it's valuable to give some of that work back to the committee because you're going to be making those decisions.
And ultimately, of course, it's your decision on who is the candidate that best meets this district's needs. Whether a candidate profile is done solely by the committee or with through focus groups, that candidate profile, that description of a perfect person for the job, the superintendent here, drives the work throughout the process. So even if you have a screening committee, part of the training is making sure that they are not looking just out of their lens, but out of the lens of, here's what the school committee decided is the ideal candidate. Here is the profile of an ideal candidate. So when you're developing questions, you ask questions to get at, is the person that's sitting in front of us meet that profile? And then if you get down to finalists, then you get into the details about, okay, here's our profile. How best do each of these finalists meet those criteria? And what can we further ask references in order to really find out if that's the right candidate for us? So that candidate profile does drive the process. It's a profile that you all agreed to. It's not our profile. It's not a profile developed by the screening committee, but it's something that's really important to make sure that you have the candidate that meets your needs.
And we'll help the screening committee. We have banks of questions. Like I said, NESDEC has been doing this a long time. So we have questions, we break them up by category. So we'll work with the screening committee. We'll give them all this information. Again, the screening process from our viewpoint is we always tell the screening, you have to figure an hour with each candidate. You have so many questions. Your job is you saw them on paper, now bring them in person. That's where you throw the questions. That's where you get a feel. How does this person interact? But I also remind school committees, being someone that's interviewed for jobs as a superintendent, there's a piece of where you're also being interviewed by that candidate. They want to see how you interact with each other. They want to see the bigger picture. How do I feel when I'm sitting in front? So we'll go over that also with the screening committee, because I think that's an important piece. As a kid, they saw your application letter. We really think this is where I want to be. The way they interact with that screening committee is very important. Now, once the finalist is chosen, we come back in person. We work with the actual school committee. We have some advice on how to do that with work schedule. How do you want the interviews? Do you want days in district? You tell us, we set that up, we reach out to the candidates, we fill in the schedule for you, and we go from there. We tend to not be in the interview process, meaning we wouldn't be there for the interviews. You would like NESDEC there, we would be there. The rationale for that is there are moments where the candidate, if I'm in the back of the room and Judy is, and they think we're the ones conducting the search, I don't want them interviewing to me or Judy. We'd rather them interview. We're on call. You'll have our cell numbers. Should a bump in the road come, you call, we're ready, we're to help you. But again, in the proposal, we'll be there if you want us. That's fine, but we tend to leave, we'll train you, we leave that work up to the screening committee and then the actual work of the board. If you wanted us for those final interviews, we'd be there. We'll set it all up. Then you do your job and you let us know. We have the warranty, which we hope we don't have to use, but I see smiles. There is a warranty in our proposal. If for whatever reason, let's say you go through this whole process and you're like, nope, don't like any of them. Other than just the cost of us reposting and everything, you get a consultant back and we'll walk you right through the process again. Should, for whatever reason, the appointment not last through the first contract year, then once again, we would come back as part of the warranty. You get the liaison, you get the consultant, we do the work for you. So we're hoping that doesn't happen. In that folder, I believe we're starting to do some work around executive coaching, and it ranges from entry plan support, which we've done before, to strategic planning, strategic audits. We're trying our best to build that relationship. We build a relationship when we come in with the school committee and the school boards, and I think if we could still manage to work with the relationship afterwards, it would be better for everybody. Superintendents are becoming more and more difficult to find. Good ones, if you have them, you want it to work. You have a draft timeline to take a look at. Our search is where the guided search is minus the focus groups. They run a little bit fast, but the average search is about 120 days. The guided search, depending if you do want focus groups added, if not, how many you want, that's up to you. But yeah, they come in closer to that 90 day because you're not losing weeks for the focus groups and writing it all up. But that's the basic timeline. You can see the benchmarks that we try to hit. And our goal would be to help you build the search you need and facilitate it for you. It's a big task. It's one of the most important jobs of a school committee is to do this work because you have a lot riding on it.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I noticed your develop letter and ad ends before community needs assessed. So are you posting for the job before the community needs assessment?
Yes, that's where I think once this, you'll make a decision on which group that would represent the search for you. Once we know if it's us, we would ask, the next meeting would come right back, we'd have another in person. The idea is we need a liaison. So once the school board committee decides the liaison is going to be Albert, he's going to be the liaison. If Albert gets tagged, then Albert and I go right, you go right to work. So what we would do is we'd send some examples. You can go online on our website. You'll see what an application letter looks like. We'd go right to work on that. The faster it's approved, we post.
If that doesn't have the whole detail of a candidate profile,
Right.
that's like the basics. You want someone with a certification, you want, we would ask you, if you expect experience with certain roles and so on. So that's the basics. The candidate profile gets into a bit more specifics. And so we don't need that before we post.
No, that application letter, as I said, gives you the opportunity to tell somebody what's special about working and living and being here. What is it that makes this environment a special place to work? So that's where, as a school committee, you'd want to pump in some of your, whatever is like new programs, new projects. Also, if we would help you do that, you craft a little bit about budgets. Like we've had stable budget for the last, our budgets are approved. We've had a stable school committee. Those are the things superintendents want to see. They want to know that they're coming into a district that has a level of stability, but there's progress also. And we'd help you craft that. And if it's not that way, that's okay. Don't worry about it. It works out. Having been in several districts in my life.
So just a kind of point of clarification, I like myself have doing this 30+ years, right? I have multiple searches that I've participated in on all levels. So you keep referring to liaison, right? And I think it's important for school committee to know that it might not be you two that we're going to be working with.
It's going to be her. The liaison is from your team.
I
So
think
we'll
it's
be working with you.
Yeah.
They'll be working with you.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
because I
absolutely.
just want to make sure that's.
Oh, no, that's, we're here. Judy's your lead.
Okay,
I'm
just
just
wanted
in
to
and
make
out.
sure.
I'll shadow
Right,
some of
right.
the work. I like to be on the ground with people,
We'd
but
like to partner up
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
so that we'll never have a conflict. There's always going to be somebody who can respond to you, but I'll be the primary person. But there'll be someone from the school committee who'll be the
That's-
liaison.
Laurie.
Who can-
and then we need one, well, Laurie could double as the spokesperson also. Because if we get a call at NESDEC, what's going on with the search, we would refer that to your, everything comes back to the committee. So we need somebody who can answer those questions for us. But no, Judy's on the point, I'm in here. And again, you may see other NESDEC, we have a team, so even in my office, Christina, I think you've talked with Christina, we work as a group, but I'm trying to train people too. So you may find there's 3 of us here at this screening committee meeting just because I'm trying to train people in the process.
Any other questions?
The broad outreach is great that you go outside of the area. I'm just curious how often you find an outside of the area candidate would be willing to come to such a small district?
I think, I'll tell you
Please,
a little
yes.
bit from experience, my own experience. I do think the majority do come from the general area in the particular state. I have spent most of my career in Rhode Island. When I was ready for a superintendency, I don't know if you know this, but there's only 38 districts in Rhode Island, so you either have to wait for someone to move on. It's difficult. I ended up going to Maine, so I was in Maine. I had to come back for family, so I drew a circle around Providence and ended up in Massachusetts. So yes, you get candidates from nearby states in general. Far fewer candidates will come from outside New England, but there will be some. And there have been some that have come to New England that have been really pretty successful, bring a different perspective. Working in different states, you really learn to not take things for granted because people just generally do things differently. But there's some advantages to having people who understand the Massachusetts way as well. That'll be up to you, but being able to compare candidates from a wider stretch, I think is very advantageous.
There have been moments, and people contact us, so superintendents will call us, so that's another piece of the outreach. I know of at least 2 superintendents out of state trying to get back into state. We had one from New Hampshire take Hull last year, did a search for us last. So there's this kind of cross-border people trying to either get back in that had left, or people that are, looking to just start something brand new. Massachusetts still is a very attractive state for education too.
Any others? All right. Thanks for coming in.
No, this
We
was a
really
pleasure.
appreciate
You
it.
have my contact,
Thank you.
that contact, let us
Thank you.
know.
Thank
Thank you for your
so much.
time.
Thanks, guys.
Truly appreciate it.
Just, I guess, to give a little overview again for MASC. I think the search subcommittee, Lori, that's you and Megan and Jeff. Maybe take all this in, get a meeting in the next little bit of time. And then our next school committee meeting, we'll make a decision on what we're gonna do and get started.
Great idea.
All right.
I'll have it sent. I'll send it to them.
Thank you very much.
All right, now,
Just sorry.
how's everybody doing? I don't know.
Sorry.
Okay, we're gonna as if we're starting over. All right, let's start with our public comments. So is anybody here for public comment? Yeah, all right. Anyone who's here for public comment, if you don't mind, head up to the front of the room, name and address and what you'd like to talk to. How many, just one? Anyone else? All right. We're gonna try to stick to our comment policy, which is 3 minutes, but you're the only one tonight, so go ahead. Right up there, that'd be great, thank you.
Jason McCat, Berlin. My son Caden is a 5th grader at EMS. He spends almost 2 hours a day on the bus. I'm here to extend mine and my wife's support for the work Bob Holmes has done regarding making the bus routes more equitable in terms of how much time kids spend on the bus. We are in favor of the proposal to reverse the afternoon routes as Bob has outlined. It should be noted that running the routes currently takes longer than they need to. The routes can be redesigned to help take much less time than they do. That's not hypothetical. This has been proven when Chip Durant was a substitute driver filling in on the route. My son spent much less time on the bus than he does today. I understand route redesign is out of scope of the current discussion, but it is worth noting that we may not be in this situation to begin with if the routes took less time overall. Personally, I'm willing to accept that I chose to live on the edge of town furthest from the school, and my son would have the longest commute as a result. But the excessive time the route takes is what brings me here today. As a Band-Aid to poor route design, I support the proposal to flip bus 3, and with an additional request to please consider route efficiency and optimization during the upcoming contract process. I want to thank Bob Holmes for the amount of time and energy he has put into analyzing the bus routes, proposing the solution, seeking input from neighbors and townspeople, working with the district and NRT, and now presenting to the school committee. In offering my feedback to Bob, I looked at an additional dimension of the data. Are more kids positively impacted than negatively impacted, and by how much? Bob's analysis will show that the proposal results in equity, that all students will have the same overall daily commute time, but I was curious, how many kids will gain time versus how many kids will lose time in this proposal? My question is rooted in the assumption most people whose daily commute is going to get shorter will likely support flipping the routes. People whose daily commute is going to get longer will likely object to flipping the routes. By doing the math on what the current commute is versus the proposed commute, you can see how much time is gained by shorter commutes versus how much is lost by longer commutes. With the assumption that shorter is good and longer is bad in mind, we can look at the data. If more kids save more time and fewer kids lose less time, the route should flip. If more kids lose time and fewer kids save time, the route should not flip. Bus 3 is skewed heavily in favor of flipping the route based on this criteria. 41 students benefit from the change versus 21 are negatively impacted by the change. There is more time saved than there is time lost. 17 students will lose 21 minutes a day, but that enables 27 students to save 30 to 63 minutes a day. More students save more time than relatively fewer students losing less time. Pending larger review and redesign of routing in the future, please enable the proposed solution starting after the holidays this school year, so kids aren't spending almost 2 hours a day on the bus.
Thank you. Final call, anyone else? All right. Any communications? I know other than we did receive many communications regarding the bus situation, both in favor of and against switching. So does anybody else have any other communications you received?
Emails be forwarded or be placed in the drive?
Yeah, I thought that they went to all of us. So yeah.
Is it just the comments on the?
We also, yeah, we received a lot of comments as well. That would come up with Al's discussion regarding the bus.
If there were separate emails, it would be nice.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. I thought that went to everybody.
I didn't get any emails. Yeah, I just got the synopsis that has a bunch of comments from the emails, but not the.
So I think Jason's email was one.
I had that one.
Yeah.
I sent it just to you guys because I thought.
Oh, yeah, so that might be the start of this thing, but a lot of those emails were reflected on that for us, right?
And we just tried it, we're getting a few here and there, so we talked to Mike and John will talk a little bit later about it, so that's why we just sent a survey out to everybody, so we could capture everybody instead of just one email here, one email there. So that would be a good thing, to capture everybody's comments.
Anybody else have any other?
If I could,
Yeah.
I heard you guys say they just put comments from the email. Those comments are just from the survey,
Oh.
not from the email.
Right.
Just want to clarify that, because it is confusing.
All right, no others? All right, the consent agenda, before we get a motion on that, I only see the meeting, the minutes in there. I don't don't see the warrant in there. Is there a warrant to approve?
There were warrants signed
There
this
should be
month.
warrants, yeah.
They are not in the file.
And we'll make sure they're in the next. Apologies.
All right, so should we just go to the minutes? And
It's fine.
I don't want anyone to vote on anything they have not seen. So, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda November 12th, 2024 meeting minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
Megan Ward, okay. Any discussion on those?
I don't know if it matters, but it says that Julie Lee was present instead of me.
All right.
Nobody. I'm listed farther down, but this is the top section.
Yeah, I see that there. Yeah, all right. So may I have a motion to amend the motion to include Elizabeth Messi's name and straight Julie Lee's name from the minutes?
So moved.
Jess?
Second.
Gord? Any discussion on that?
Sorry about that.
All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Against? All right, so the amended motion passes. We are now into the original motion to approve the minutes. Any discussion on minutes? All right, and all those in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Against? All right, that motion passes the November meeting minutes. Okay. Next up is the chair's report. I really don't have anything specific to say other than the other agenda items on the agenda, so we'll just continue on to the superintendent's report, please.
Thank you. So I apologize, I got sort of on my gear to report tonight. So good evening. Before we go anywhere, I just want to sort of reiterate what Mike said, to congratulate our high school football team, who are Super Bowl champions. I know that making the decision on behalf of even the school committee and myself to have that half day last Friday was met certainly with mixed feelings. But seeing my students win and having that many people in the stands, certainly rooting them on, was a memory that none of our students will forget, not only for the students that were playing, but also for the students to have the chance to be that close on Gillette Stadium and that close to the field, and some of our students actually even being on the field. So we want to congratulate our high school football team and the cheerleaders that did some great work as well too. There'll be a parade for them on this coming Saturday at 10 o'clock. Starting at the West Boylston Town Hall. So please, if you're able to make it, join us. We also have something special planned for our football team that we're working on right now for Friday morning as well too, that we're trying to keep that sort of a secret until Friday takes place as well too, but congratulations for that. Mike, you have said something lately that really holds true for this moment, that we need to celebrate our successes, right? And this is one of our successes. We should absolutely be proud of our kids, the way they handle themselves in the field as well too. It was just really remarkable to see them doing that, so congratulations to those guys. I'm going to this time ask our student rep, I know Matt Dowd's here with us, I know you have a little bit you'd like to share with us, Matt, if you could, please.
Yeah, I don't have too much to share this time. The first thing I got was some student council events we recently held. So we had our Thanksgiving food drive, which we hold every year. It went really well, so we donate a whole bunch of canned goods to the Boylston and Berlin pantries, as well as we put together a couple of Thanksgiving dinners for Tonto families. And then our upcoming Stuco thing, we're doing something a little bit weird around this year. We always have our Winter Spirit Week. This year we're doing it combined, middle and high school. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. We've never done it before, so it might be a little bit crazy, but and sports-wise, obviously, as I mentioned, our Lions football team for the third year in a row, won the state championship. And also the girls varsity soccer team for the second year in a row made it to the state Final Four competition. So that was really awesome. And other than that, there's not really much else to mention that I have. So I think that's about it.
Yeah, we need to make sure that the soccer team doesn't get overshadowed.
We celebrated them, I think we acknowledged them at the last.
Yes, we did, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, just Final Four is pretty solid.
Agreed, absolutely. Thank you, thanks, Matt. So the next item on the agenda is a proposal for the bus route changes for the town of Berlin. At this time, I'd like to introduce, for those who don't know, Bob Holmes, who will give us a brief presentation on the proposed bus changes. After Bob presents, I'm going to have John Campbell will provide us some data based on a survey that was sent out to parents at Berlin. And I think John, he actually spearheaded that for me, so I appreciate that. And after that, I'll be asking school committee to just give me a little bit of direction on how to proceed as a superintendent of school. And I look forward to that feedback from them making this final decision on this. So I'll turn it over to Bob Holmes at this time, please.
So good evening, folks, school committee, Superintendent Gannon, thanks for inviting me and sharing some of your time. If I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, my name is Bob Holmes. I'm a parent in Berlin. I have 3 daughters in grades 3, 4, and 5 at Berlin Memorial School. What I'm about to show you is 4 years worth of lobbying with past school administrators to make an improvement to the bus routing in Berlin. I'll try to keep it concise for you. So to start, I want everyone to know that as a family that utilizes the bus, we recognize its job one is to get our kids safely to and from school. It does that very effectively year over year, and we're very appreciative of that. What I want to also highlight is that buses also create the first and last experience of school for kids. And while we are grateful for the system we have, there's an opportunity to make it even better for our kids, and it's free. So as mentioned, as Jason mentioned, and perhaps as you've heard from others that have written in, today, the way buses run in Berlin, the afternoon routes are run backwards. They're run in reverse as compared to the morning routes. What that means is the student that's picked up first in the morning spends the entire route on the bus before they get to school, and then that same student is dropped off last, so they make their way all the way back before they're dropped off. This might mean, and it does mean in some cases, over an hour to school and an hour home. As a parent of kids affected by this, that are in this situation, I can tell you that they are absolutely drained by the time they get off the bus. It's a tough experience. I work 35 miles from my house, and I don't spend that much time in the car going to and from work. I think it's unreasonable to expect an elementary school kid to do that, especially in a small town where all children live within 3 miles of the school. Fortunately, there's a really simple solution, and that is to simply run the routes in the same order in the afternoon as you do in the morning. There's a few benefits. First of all, it's one route for bus drivers to memorize. And just repeat it morning and afternoon. The child that's picked up first, they might have a long commute to school, but they'll benefit with a short commute on the way home because they'll be the first dropped off. And it creates, you'll see that it creates perfect equity for every student. Every child has exactly the same amount of time on the bus from each bus route that they use. I'll give you an example for bus 3. So what I'm showing here is the current routing for bus 3, and the total amount of time a student spends on the bus is plotted in the y-axis. And these are the various stops that bus makes across the x-axis. You can see the disparity from someone that lives on Linden Street versus someone that's on Highland or one of the other addresses. There is not a correlation between distance from the school. It's not like we live in a town where there's an extreme other side of the track section where someone would expect an hour ride to school. As I said, everyone lives within 3 miles of BMS on this list. Yet there's a pretty substantial disparity. By simply switching that, flipping the PM route back so it runs in the same order as the morning route, you get this. It is mathematically perfect equity for every student. Everybody's got an hour on the bus. It might be 5 minutes in the morning and 55 minutes on the way home. It might be 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes on the way home. It might be 55 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes on the way home. But everybody spends the same amount of time today. This is what it looks like side to side. As I said, 60 minutes per day, perfectly level loaded for every student. There's one route for the driver to memorize. And by my math, the driver's getting home early, doing it this way. And this is excluding, some of the optimizations that Mr. Paquette mentioned that are out of scope for this conversation, but recommended for maybe review in the summertime. Same thing applies to bus 2. You've got the same disparity Bus 2 is a bit shorter than bus 3, so it'll be a 45-minute total duration per day per child that rides the bus. Level loaded every day. And similarly, you get a similar effect on bus 1. Bus 1 is a 55-minute route, and so students will spend 55 minutes, so proportioned differently morning and afternoon depending on where their pickup time is on the route. There aren't that many opportunities where a little tweak can make a sweeping, broad improvement to a community. This is one of those opportunities, and your vote can enable it tonight. I do want to share, before we get to that point, a little context about how we got here. So I want you to understand what the families in Berlin have been living with for 4 years. In 3 months, it'll be 4-year anniversary. This was first raised, at least on my radar, in March of 2021. A different family in Berlin brought this up. They found their child was exhausted getting off the bus after an hour commute, and they brought it up to the then Director of Ops and Finance, Robert Conry. Within a week of that inquiry, I'll direct you to what's in the red box. Mr. Conry replied the following: "What you propose is generally how we like the routes to be structured, so overall drive time is similar for all students." He passed the request to NRT, our bus company, and within 7 days, the lead dispatcher of NRT said the following: "Bob, I think this is something we can accommodate. In the past, the route was run like this. For a student with medical reasons, that student no longer rides the bus." Both Mr. Conry and NRT committed to making that change, and within weeks, in April, it was made, and the routes were changed in 2021. Everybody celebrated. In August of 22, at the beginning of the next school year, the routes were published, and we quickly noticed that they reverted back. I had reached out to Mr. Conry's replacement. He had retired, and Ms. Kaniski took his place. I reached out to Ms. Kaniski, and over the course of several weeks, and informing her and getting her the backstory, she agreed and committed to making the change on October 17th. Her reply to me: "Good morning, the bus company will be rerouting this run in the afternoon. They'll do their best to have it done by October 17th. It'll be different than what you had, as I was missing some stops that were added after the school started." Great, we're gonna fix it. You might remember in 2022, post-COVID, there was a complete crisis and shortage of bus drivers. So before this was enacted, all hell broke loose, for lack of better terminology. And we didn't have bus drivers in many cases. We didn't have buses at all, we were combining routes. And so really, the year was spent triaging a bus driver crisis. So regrettably, but understandably, this was deprioritized to just try to get some buses going. We accepted that in 2022. We were still optimistic in August of 23 when the routes were published that it would be there. It wasn't. Again, the old pattern. So I reached out to, again, Ms. Kaniski, former Superintendent Costello, dragging the backstory with me and informing them on what happened and what we were hoping to do immediately after they were published. We had a few weeks of back and forth with former Superintendent Costello, and she expressed her frustration that she couldn't get through to NRT on this. In her words, in 23, "The battle to reverse the bus route has become insurmountable at this point, and I will try to understand and to demand the reasoning from NRT. They maintain it will take longer, that all buses operate in this manner, yada, yada, yada." At this point, she was even considering bringing in legal counsel to strong-arm NRT into getting this done. Where we landed was bottom box. "Now, fully aware of your concerns, I can advocate earlier in the year for changes such as yours to be honored." I made a reminder on my phone that day, remind Carol of July 1st to follow up with NRT. And when that reminder came up, I sent her the email, and within a couple of days, she got back to me. This is in July 10th, summer before to this school year. "Thank you for your email, Bob. I haven't forgotten you. As soon as we begin bus route discussions with NRT, I will push to have this changed. I'll reach out to them this week just as a reminder that we have discussed making the change for this year. so they could take it into consideration as they plan. Great. Me being annoyingly persistent, I reminded her again several weeks later, actually shortly after I saw the retirement notice. Hope you're great, yada, yada, yada. Did you have an opportunity to connect within our team for this year? And I never heard a response. August of '24, the routes are published again, and of course, they're in the same old pattern. So at that point, I reached out immediately to the superintendent, to the school committee, probably within hours, maybe minutes of the routes being published. Right, there was a flurry of emails, and this process has taken us where we are today. This information was presented last week at the BMS parent-teacher organization link at the school, and here, of course, today. Bottom line, we've got a number of families that are really looking to have this change done. It does create, as you can see, perfect equity. The math is beautiful. Perfect equity for every student. It's free and it's simpler. Most importantly, it does create a better experience for our kids every day. Want to just highlight again that the administration has been aware of this issue for nearly 4 years. There has never been pushback. There has never been an argument to not do it. I don't think there's a reason to not do it, but for one reason or another, we've been living with it for 4 years. So I'd ask that while I understand changing routes mid-year is not ideal, please, as we consider voting, do not ask these families to wait a little bit longer to get again. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. But that's all I have to plan for.
Quick question.
Jessica?
On your first or second slide, it had on the way home, it was the second slide, 13 minutes to home for the first kid off the bus. And I was
Which one
just
is it?
curious, the second
Oh,
slide.
yeah. Oh, yes.
No, the next one back.
13 minutes to home.
Yeah,
With the asterisk?
I was curious what,
So the bus actually, I used the published bus routes to calculate all of this. And the route starts, the clock starts while the bus is sitting at the BMS parking lot. And it sits there for 12 minutes, loading kids. And then it goes and drops the first child off. So the child, if they're the first one on the bus immediately, they might sit on the bus for 13 minutes, but it's actually driving for 60 seconds. Or if they're last on, if they jump on last, it might be just 60 seconds. But that's why that's a little.
Even if all 3 buses are there, they only dismiss 1 bus at a time. So the bus will be sitting there for a while.
Right. Any other questions?
Bob, thanks.
Thank you.
I remember last year, your conversation. We spoke a lot about it. I mean, I'm also a family that's on we do have another side of the tracks in town. I mean, the school's on that side of the tracks, we're on this side of the tracks. There's the other side of the tracks. And I'm one of those families too. And I specifically remember talking to you and speaking to Carol and Nancy at the time. I remember their commitment and promise to you to do this. It's just another one of those things that was dropped this summer, but, yeah.
It gets dropped every year.
Every year it does, but last year specifically was tough because it was Nancy's first year doing it full. I remember specifically sitting in a conversation with you and those two, and the commitment that they made to you. And your emails show exactly what happened there, so. I'm with you. I'm with you. John, you're gonna have a say about the comments from the parents. I'm with you. But I am concerned about the comments we received. Those in favor are a general, yeah, I'm in favor, let's do it. The ones that are against, they're a lot more detailed about how significantly this will impact families. So I don't know what's going to happen. I just want you to understand that it might be perfect equity in time. I mean, I love equity. It's all equity in time. Everybody's equal. But it's not for the families that are voting these comments. There are some that are, they're going to be hurting if it's media. But that said, here we go.
Mike, I would just add that I understand that. please consider that the families on the short end of this stick have been hurting for 4 years. We've been enduring this, right? It's not convenient to have this.
I know you
So
feel that
the
way.
change is tough.
I know you feel that way. I just don't think every family feels that way, but.
Can I just, so my kids are now at Tohoto. This is more than 4 years old. This has been going on, like, my kids left the building before this ever got fixed. The routes get published like a day, every year it gets a little bit closer to the first day of school. And then not only is it just that they promise to reverse the route and they don't, but all the corrections that were made the year before, where you have kids being picked up on the wrong side of the street, you have kids walking down South Street, it all reverts. And then everyone calls and they say, you gotta give it a week. It's the first week of school. You have to be patient. He doesn't have a chance to rectify it before school starts. So I'm sorry that it's December and we're doing this, but no one's ever given a chance over the summer to fix it. That's our fault, the school district's fault.
So like I said, like, I'm one of the families that is impacted, this will impact our schedule, it will make it harder for us, but I'm also supportive. But I didn't mean to steal John's thunder.
You already
anyway.
did. Stolen, thunder
That's all I do.
stolen.
That's my real name, John, but come on.
Just real quickly, so we wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to hear their voice heard. You can see in the graph, about 2/3 of the family favor it. I don't have the data to support it, but I would guess that it's 1/3 of the people who would benefit and 1/3 of the people who wouldn't see a lot of change, so fine, we can make a change. And that last 1/3 of the people that we're talking about, who've made their childcare arrangements for the year, or their work arrangements for the year. I thought that the observation about the people opposed being, having a more concrete set of reasons is very accurate. And it's hard. If I can go a little further, with your permission.
By all means, John, absolutely, thank you.
It is what happens every year. Last year, I checked while we were talking earlier. We got the bus routes August 27th for an August 29th start. And it's not the first time. This is not so much school district created as it is our inability to motivate our employee and our team. Because you said something at length the other night. I think it's the same list, they just keep copying it. I thought, oh my goodness, he's probably right. We get all this talk from them, but we're working on it. We're putting a lot of time into it this year. And it's the same bus routes. And I think that's where, whatever you decide with this, and I would love to see the kids have that. I think we have to weigh parent concerns in that as well. But it has to be July 1. We are on these people. We can't accept bussers, later than August 1st, August 7th, maybe? Because it's just bad business. Because when it comes on the 27th, there is literally, then they start, we need a week. And then they start to tweak a couple things. Every year I have to call Sergeant Goulder. This bus stop's not safe. These kids have to cross the street. There is no sidewalk here. It's a huge time suck. And for what? Because it's easier for them just to copy the bus route over. But yeah, it was nice. We had 70 parents respond to this. That's probably about 1/3 of the households in the school. The other thing that I thought was interesting, and someone brought it up, several people mentioned Tohoto having the same problem. So this is bigger than just Little Berlin. And I think, whatever.
BES as well.
Yeah,
But it's not a problem at BES. Nobody has complained. Or, I have not heard, and
They were reversed at BES for at least one of the years that we've been here, and so then it went back, so.
I think the issue, and we talked about this last year, the issue is I think Berlin needs another bus. We actually threw that in the budget, full $60,000, I think. So I think to have kids on a bus in kindergarten for an hour is a lot. I don't think it's right, but it was just something, and again, that would be 100% going back to the town, right? If you need another Berlin bus, whether it be for Tohoto or BMS, it's Berlin cost. And, it was a very tight squeeze last year, so we were not able to accommodate that. The difference in Boylston is I don't think any kid is on the bus for longer than 30 minutes, right?
Permission to talk?
Yes.
So at Boylston, it's not more than an hour. It's 45 minutes to an hour. We get that all call when they're clear every day. The issues with Boylston, again, we got that bus route 2 days before school started. The other issues were unsafe stops that, again, that takes our time at the beginning of the year and that wait to give us a week, give us 2 weeks. And then there was a family waiting for, I think, a month this year about an unsafe stop that was Superintendent Gaynor finally took care of for this family. They were very grateful that that is an issue. The time needs to be bumped up from this company.
Al, you've been,
Yeah, sorry. So not that I need to defend anybody, but the onus is really on us as a district, right? So Aaron and I can attest for working in the regional school district for many years. There's a window that we have during the summer that we're supposed to submit our bus routes. And that's what happened this year. We're supposed to submit our bus routes, submit any changes, get feedback from families. Look at the students who are graduating, no longer need bus. Look at our preschool kids who are coming on board with their addresses and submit that all to the bus company. It doesn't appear from the emails that I've seen that we submitted that in a timely manner during the summer. And for us not to submit it to them, that's what the issue was. So my first day in August, I was like, where are the bus routes? Where are the bus routes? And we did a lot of pushing to get them for the day we did. And I think it was shortly after I started that we got them in there. But there's always a window that you're giving during the summer to put all that information in that we missed this past summer. In full disclosure, you need to know that. The second part about that is we're in the process of starting to negotiate a new contract with our bus company, and that'll be one of the things that will be of utmost importance to us about making sure that we have these bus routes in time, so that if there is an error or there is an unsafe bus route, that we can make those changes before school starts and not after. But in all regional school districts, you do have a window of opportunity to submit those bus routes.
If I can clarify, we are not renegotiating with our bus company, we're putting it out to bid.
That's right, thank you.
Right.
Good.
So do we have to vote on this?
So I'm not asking you to vote on this, I'm asking you to give me some guidance. Personally, I think this makes sense. The one thing I'm asking from school committee, does it make sense now in January to do this, right? So that's why we brought the survey out to families and get some input from them. This will absolutely be something that we put in place for next year for sure. In the fall, it will be in the summer, I should say, we'll be putting this in place, as well as looking at the other routes and getting input from secretaries and principals about, are these the routes that we need for next year, and submitting them to NRT, or whoever the bus company is. Thanks, Aaron, for that clarification. But I just need some direction from school committee. Is this something that you need me to do now, or is this something that you want me to wait on until the fall? I do have to say that seeing the emails of the exchange back and forth, I think there were some promises made that this wouldn't be in place. So I just gonna give you all that information with hope that you guys can give me some direction what to do.
Hey, Al, we're doing that right now because winter break is coming.
That's right.
They need some time to notify.
That's right.
Parents are gonna need time to rearrange if this does happen.
That's right.
It's not like we're doing it in October and it's taking place that week.
So when I met first with Mike Frampon from NRT, they wouldn't entertain it during the fall. Thanks for bringing that up, Mike. He needed to do this at the Christmas break, so we could train the bus drivers, whatever that looks like, to make sure they're rerouting and going over on that.
I mean, that's less than a month away. I mean, most people have their January work scheduled. So I don't support kids being on the bus more than an hour, but just from a working parent perspective, like you know, every second counts for you getting home to that bus on time. So I respectfully, I would like to suggest maybe after February break, just to allow parents more than a month to adjust their work schedules to get home at a different time.
So,
So first of all, I have to compliment Bob on that presentation, because I don't know how you could look at that and not be horrified, not only by the amount of inequity that is there, but also how long it's taken you to get here. And you've been told yes so many times along the way, and you've still had to persist. I empathize if this was December 20th or something. I feel like it's December 10th. I feel like there's enough time, and I believe me, I'm very much on the fence about it because I get both sides, but I just feel like it's really terrible to have these kids on the bus that long twice a day. It doesn't sit right with me. We talk a lot about diversity, equity, inclusion, and that is not equity. So thank you for taking the time to do that because it really made it clear.
Anybody else? Yeah, Lisa, you look like.
Well, I was on Ball Hill, I am on Ball Hill Road too, and my kids were in that same situation, and it was awful. And I just ended up driving them most of the time because of that. You know, that's not ideal for many reasons. So I do think it's really unfair, you know, to have been going on for this long. So I would be like, yeah, like, let's change it now, but I really do worry about the families that have to change their schedule. So I think that Jess had a really great idea to maybe wait until February, but like to do it this year and don't delay, you know, until next year.
I think one thing that must help me out, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason for doing it now is the break. If we were to start in January one way, and go until February, and then make a switch, would that not be the same issue as if we were to decide in October?
Yeah, they really, they want the change to take place during the Christmas break, right? And I'm not, again, for training, they can bring the bus drivers in, they can practice the routes with no kids on it, so they want to be able to do that. And Christmas break is longer than usual, so they'll be able to do that as well too. And so that's the direction. And at this point, and I think Bob said that in the presentation, there's zero cost with them saying to us in January, at this break, this is what needs to happen. They did not give me a suggestion of February or later. It was for January.
No, this is separate. I was going to ask Mr. Campbell, and this might be more of a Mrs. Rappa question. How often do kids end up back at the school because they didn't? And what grades do they have to be in to get off the bus by themselves?
They can't be in elementary school. I think it's
Okay.
13, maybe 12.
And how often do they boomerang back?
Very infrequent.
Okay.
So you think they have to not be in elementary to be let off the bus alone?
I think, and that's a Judy question.
Discretion where
It's 12 or
like,
13.
But sometimes like for fifth graders, if the parent has talked to the bus driver, they'll.
Well, then there's that whole piece.
Yeah,
Which is
so
sometimes
there's-
parents and bus drivers make their own.
Berlin's a small town,
Yeah.
they generally, but so if their parent is not there, they will send the kid back to the school. So that would obviously be, we don't want.
Yes, I've experienced that in Holden. But I think if it's at a house, they leave them at the house, like if it's a stop and there's no parents there. So like, I know a
No,
lot
if
of.
it's if it's a kindergartner and there's nobody there, they're not getting on that bus.
No, they're
Not in Berlin, they're not.
Yeah, kindergarten, I think.
You Boston people must be tough.
I don't know what you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, by law.
Yeah, you can't do a kindergartner, yeah, it has to be a parent, yeah.
So respectfully, there is a cost to the parents who now will have to leave work potentially early, that they arrange their jobs to get home at a certain time. And in terms of the length of the break versus February break, both, if you celebrate Christmas and New Year's are both during the weeks. So that still remains only 5 working days for them to do that schedule, because I doubt they're going to have their drivers come in on Christmas or New Year's Day. So respectively, they have the same amount of time to train their drivers in February break versus winter break. And again, likely most people have had their schedule at least a month in advance, some 2 or 3 months in advance. So, we are a more diverse economic district, and our calendar has not recognized that fully recently. And so I think this would be an appropriate time to recognize that time needs to be allowed for people to adjust.
Yeah, Bob, this conversation specifically that you're having, you've made several presentations to the Berlin parents. So tonight's not the first time the Berlin parents know this is coming.
Right.
How many times have you presented this to parents? To group, like official groups?
Formally, last week at the parent-teacher organization was the first time I stood up and gave this pitch to any Berlin parent who wanted to listen.
And normally conversations happen all the time with parents?
About 4 years before.
I hear what Jess is saying, and I'm with you. I'm one of these parents who will be impacted. My kid's the first on the bus, last off. It does impact our situation. But I also, this statement came up during COVID for the breakfast time, schools are not daycare, right? It's not our childcare, our responsibility is to educate, get them home safely, and make sure it's fair. So even though this personally impacts me and our family and our schedule, we're gonna have to figure something out. It's also, I look at the bus and they're empty because there's a lot of activities after school, kids are staying after school, so sports, basketball after school right now, just about the entire school is playing. There's enrichment activities, there's the aftercare program, so the bus in the afternoon, my kids get home much earlier than the stated time. So I would support this for January. And that's what we need to do tonight, is tell Al to support him or not, because Al's gonna make this decision, it's within his jurisdiction. So.
Yeah, I
how you wanna
agree.
do that?
Yeah, I think if, you could ask them if you could have a little bit of a grace period, if one of you guys could talk to NRT and maybe you get like even a little bit more time so people can arrange your schedule. I am in that camp of, I feel for people that have that situation where they're relying on the bus times for their work. But at the same point in time, you know, I talked on the phone with Bob in September, and this was supposed to be done in September. So the fact that we're talking about this now, I was shocked. I thought it was already done. And I mean, back in April of 2021, Bob Connery just made the decision in a week, and it was just like, all right, this is happening. So I feel like this has been the reason that it's the way it is because of mistakes on the district's part. It was decided in April of 2021, as clearly shown, that the routes should be reversed. We talked about adding a bus last year. I think, again, that is the actual solution to this problem, because I don't think kids should be on the bus for an hour. But that's just not in the cards right now. So I think the right thing to do is to make this change and maybe see if there's, you know, to Jess's point, where like 10, 15 days out from.
There's MLK Day.
Yeah, so
That's
right,
January
exactly.
20th,
Can you
that's
at
a
least
month.
get a little bit more time to make the change? That's just gonna give people that extra time to figure out what they need to do.
So I think what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, we support the change, it's just a question of the date. So
Yes, at least me.
Maybe we say we support the change and Al works out the date with NRT that works best.
So what I think I'm hearing is that, yeah, absolutely. So I will call NRT tomorrow and see if it's doable for a February break. And if they say to me, there's going to be a cost for it, or we can't do it during that time, and again, this is them giving me this information, then we'll do the January date. Is that, everyone okay with that?
Well, alternatively, they could train during winter break as planned and then enact it on
Sure.
MLK Day.
I'm going to talk to them. So it sounds like we're not waiting till the fall. We're going to try to get the earliest date that works for our families and it works for the NRT as well too.
Yeah, and I'm curious, I know sometimes for after-school program, you can only enroll at certain times. I don't know if that's true at BMS, but I didn't know if any particular waiting period could be waived for any families that might need to use after-school
Probably
program.
no waiting period.
Okay, so you could say, oh, now I need this.
And just one last thing, Rich John did really great work on this. He did, he was very helpful with this, getting the survey out to parents, having scheduled a meeting with Bob and I and the parent group, so I appreciate that. After you guys' decisions made, that this work we have to do, like notifying parents, getting this information out. So this will be one of the top priorities tomorrow to find out. I'll send an email out to you guys at school committee after I talk to NRT, and then we'll proceed, I'll meet with John and go from there.
I would just like to make a request. If we do go with that February date, the first time those kids are on the bus is February 24th, which is more than 2 months from now. I don't think February is a realistic time. If we're going to compromise, then sometime in January to give people a heads up would be okay. I mean, I'm good with right after vacation, but if you feel there's more of a buffer time, I just don't think that's fair.
I don't really understand what training the bus drivers to reroute their route.
Well, and I like Jessica's idea of training them during winter break
And
and then giving a little bit of a bump, so everybody then everybody gets a little bit of what they want.
This is them, so I gotta talk to them.
Yeah, MLK would be ideal, I agree.
Okay, so we have that, we're
I feel good about the
approaching
direction.
an hour of
Yes.
conversation.
Thank you.
And just to echo, I really appreciate the data,
Yes.
Bob, that you took
Yeah.
hours and hours, and John, and you as well, but sending out the survey. It was really nice to actually see what parents, were saying and feeling and seeing the data. So
I'm sorry, Bob did a nice job with this one, so I thank you for it.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm sorry you had to do that.
Al, you're still
So
on.
can I
Thanks, Bob.
continue? So I want to give a little update about vocational schools because I know that was a conversation we had at the previous school committee meeting. I had a chance to speak with the superintendent of schools, Ernie Houle. He's the superintendent of Aspect. So just a little background because I needed to make sure I understood this as well. And most of you probably understand it more than I do. But in 1968, 10 school districts were asked to participate in the formation of Aspect. They were all invited to come in, Berlin being one of them, Boston being one of them as well too. 3 school districts, when it came time to really initiate that and go forward with this, 3 school districts backed out, and one of them was Boston at the time. So in the past, we talked to the superintendent, the average number of students that applied was anywhere about 179, right? So about 179, so there was room there. And so we have kids that there'd be opportunities for students that were outside of district, and Boston's considered to be outside of district. They could apply and we'd be able to pull from the larvae of those students that are there. Most recently, what they're approximate, they're receiving anywhere from 450 to 500 applications now in the field. They accept 300, so that's from just in district. So that 150 that are put on a wait list are still kids from in districts, and Berlin being one of them. Boston students can apply, but after those slots are filled or not used, then the opportunity for Boston kids can. The one thing I did learn in these last couple of meetings I've had and conversations I have, that students that could apply from Boston is in their 10th grade, right? And there's more open opportunities for them. I'm going to talk to Lisa, and I haven't had a chance to her and the guidance counselor, but there is opportunities when you're in 10th grade. The limited opportunities though, so you might not be able to choose exactly what you want. If there's openings there because a student freshman year says, you know what, this is not for me, I'm going back to my neighborhood school, then there are some openings. So what we've suggested, and I've spoken to Mike, our chair, about this, that we're going to get together with myself, the superintendent, Mike, and this woman called Lynn Ryan. Her name is Lynn Ryan.
Yeah,
She's from
Berlin.
Berlin. She's the representative on Aspen Valley. And so we're going to get together to see what are some other opportunities. Just now that we found out that 10th graders have a more of an opportunity than our 9th graders do, because there'll be some openings there. So we need to do that. One of the other things that is available to us that I want to make sure we're taking opportunities is our students have the right to go visit, right? So we're making sure that our students can go there, whether it be Berlin or Boston students, so they can go visit and take a look at that. And that's open for our 8th graders, so we need to look at that. Again, I need to have conversations with the principal of the high school and the guidance counselor as well too. So our next step is a scheduled meeting. Like I said, Lynn Ryan, who's the representative from Berlin, Superintendent Wu, myself, and Mike, and we'll be able to give you back more information after that. Okay? I wanted to make sure I gave you an update about what was taking place in terms of vocational schools. So the next thing I'd like to talk to you about is what's called our academic rigor or academic excellence and what that looks like. I've heard loud and clear that we need to do better and that we can do better. And I believe I mentioned even in my first conversation with you about this book, Good to Great by Jim Collins, right? The enemy of great is being good. And we are a good district, but we can't do that. And I think we all agree, whether it be my admin team, the community, the school committee, we can do that. But my question to school committee and as a whole, that we're starting to have these conversations, what do you think? What is doing better need? What does that look like to each and every one of us? And I reference it as being called academic excellence, right? What is academic excellence? And I think that's a real important question. I think we talk about wanting to do better, but what does it mean to everyone sitting in this room? Because when I look at the table of organization, I look at our parents and our students, I look at school committee, and then I look at myself and the admin team, right? And the flow chart that goes down. But I'm curious to the people that are sitting in this room, what really does academic excellence look like? What do you mean by that? Is it better MCAS scores? Because some people believe in that, and others say it's only one test. Do not base everything on the MCAS scores. Is it higher advanced placement scores? Huge piece of that. Is it improved attendance? We've heard that a piece of as well too. Is it high enrollment numbers? Something we talked about. Is it college and university acceptances? Huge piece. Do we have kids go to Ivy League schools? Is it rigor for our students? Is it professional learning for our teachers? Or is it student retention rate? The list could go on and on. But I really need us to decide as a group what we think,
academic excellence is. What are we looking for as a school committee? Because you're saying to me, we want that, but what do we think that is? What are you expecting from us in terms of that? And I'll tell you a little bit what we as administrators do, and I'm not putting any of the school committee on the spot, but just something to think about, like, what do you believe academic excellence is? Because we've done this activity in my previous district, and everyone had a little different lens on it. And it's really hard for us as administrators and the people that are helping lead this district instructionally to be looking in this direction when you really want us to look in this direction. But I want us to think about, what do you believe academic excellence should look like in Berlin Falls City School District? And I'll just pause for a second and see if anyone in the school committee would like. I'm not putting anyone on the spot, but I am.
Just a little bit more what Al's talking about. This is sort of the theme that we've been talking about the last few meetings, what we're talking about going into the superintendent search. We're gonna have descriptions of what we want that next person to be. So earlier this year, we talked about, we expected to have another vote on the handbook with Tahanto tonight. That's going to happen next month. It's not happening tonight. We're not ready, but that's a piece of it. We're gonna have that come up. I'm not prepared tonight, but this idea, this theme, I guess, of, we heard this at the town meetings last year with the budget, focus on the special needs. And there is a lot of focus there. And then the other half of the parents stood up at town meetings and said, well, what about the other side? And we don't talk about that as much because, I don't know. So this is sort of a theme that I think is going to be coming this year, and as we look for a new superintendent. Anybody want to add?
I do. So I think that one of the things that I've observed is that I think that, we spend a lot of time, to your point, and resources on special needs and helping kids that have needs. And I think that's great. But are we spending time and resources on kids that need to be challenged? Kids that, if you just let them go, they'll just do status quo, they'll be good, they'll be okay. But if they're pushed, they'll be great. And I think that we could do a better job of that district-wide on identifying those kids that might be lazy or might be, just kind of like hiding. Because what kid is gonna say, give me more work, I'd rather do work than go outside and play or play video games. But I think, and I'm not saying like the teachers need to do that. I think maybe we need more resources. We need, more coaches, more people that can come in and identify those kids and push them further. Because to me, being great, and I'm a runner, and I love fitness and exercise, and pushing myself is, even when I'm uncomfortable or tired, is how I get better. And I think we need to maybe shift our focus on that in the schools.
And a lot of this, to make this point, you guys can chime in, but a lot of this does come from that exit survey, 8th and 9th grade.
Yeah.
We saw the summary over the summer. We got the more details on that, but a lot of this does come from comments from that.
So I went to a talk on just this, and so there's I forget the full name, but it's MASC, and they provide education on how to do just this. So apparently Massachusetts is one of the few states that doesn't have an IEP for those that are excelling.
Gifted,
a gifted IEP. And so interestingly, Desi just hired someone to spearhead this within our state, which is really great. But MASC might be something to look into for that type of, instead of giving a kid extra work, you have them do 2 of 4 problems and then do this more, enrichment part of the lesson.
I just a couple of things. So special education, right? There are students with IEPs, right? By law, we have to make sure we're providing that. But we also got to look at special education. Sometimes it's 2 ends of the spectrum, right? So there's kids that are special because they have that high performance that are accelerating as well. So we need to take a look at that. And I don't necessarily know that we're doing this much push on that as well too. Again, a lot of good ideas out there, but it's a lot of blinking lights that we really need to get our focus in. And that's something that the work that we're going to do as well too, because it needs to be done. It really does. It was, I'm dating myself late, but it used to be in Worcester, we had what's called a PEAK program, right? PEAK, and it was providing enrichment for academic kids, right? So this was a high performing kids that we're providing the academics and the curriculum for. So are things that are out there that we can go visit and see, and not necessarily in the state of Massachusetts, but we live very close to the border of Rhode Island and New Hampshire where they have these programs as well too. And that's really what we get at.
So I just wanted to comment, I was at top grades 3 through 5, I was I don't know if they do inclusion anymore, but I was the inclusion classroom, so I had kids with IEPs in my class. And a lot of them were extremely bright. They just had processing problems or things like that. But when I taught in Berlin my first year, we had Mrs. Russo, and she was an enrichment teacher, and she came in once a week. And let me tell you, every kid in that classroom lived for that day. They loved the way that she challenged their minds. She got them to think in different ways. I think enrichment is a really huge piece. And I think we got rid of that because we need more time on learning, but I think it really just gets these kids to think differently. And I was always really impressed with my special ed students because they soared. And a lot of their classmates would see them in that way. So it's helpful for both kids, for both ends of the spectrum, and the kids in the middle too.
This group has heard me not saying over and over again, I apologize, UDL, right? Universal Design for Learning, where all students can learn, right? And we're not just singling out for our students with special education, but there are ways to teach that everyone's gonna learn and do well on and exceed. So it's not just scanning and deliver, but there's different ways that students learn, right? So that's a huge piece, and that's some of differentiated instruction we talked about, but that's being very, very specific. So that's the work that we really need to do, and I'm gonna just, again, push back, and this is the work Sally and I have said, we need a strategic plan, right? So that we all know what we're looking at doing. So even when we're sitting in the budget meeting last night, someone's throwing out, oh, how about this? How about that? We shouldn't even change financially, never mind our instruction on what our focus is for the next 5 years. So we're not saying we're not supporting them this year, we're putting it on the back burner, but this is what we need to be focusing our academics on and our financial piece on. We really need to have, and if there's anything that I'm going to leave here as an interim superintendent is something, semblance of a strategic plan in place. So the best gift that a superintendent can have, as I gave to the superintendent when I retired, is a strategic plan in place. Here it is. Now I can really do the work that's been laid out there. But I don't want to, so there's pockets of excellence going on, right? When I'm talking to Cindy and I'm talking to John and I'm talking to Lisa, there are academic things that are taking place that are excellent. But there's in silos over. So we have to make sure, because everyone that's coming from Berlin and Bolton eventually goes to Tohoto and eventually walks across that stage and graduates with a Berlin Bolton Regional School District diploma. But we're all doing some really great things, but we're all sort of rowing, but we're all rowing in different directions. We're all working really, really hard, but I think we could work maybe a little bit differently. And that's the work that we need as an admin team to say, okay, this is our plan. This is where we're going. And we understand this is what school committee wants, and this is what the community wants. So we're not just trying to go up the blink and oh, that sounds good, let's go over there. So if I could just ask for a couple minutes, I don't mean to put you on the spot, principals, but if you could share, and this is something we're gonna do every single meeting, and it goes back to Mike saying, we should be celebrating our successes. So what are some of the things that we're doing in our school this time period, from September, from when we first came on board, from when I first came on board, what are we doing now to show that we're being successful in the work that we're doing? So if I can ask you, Lisa, to start.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So at Tohoto, we're dedicated to reviewing and always looking at our programming to make sure that we're refining our programming to ensure that we're meeting student needs. So we're excited this year, we were very excited to have reintroduced our accelerated math in grade 7 with the new full-time math teacher that we have. I know that it's hugely successful, and the students are now going to be able to move further in the math curriculum in high school without needing to double up at the high school level. And then this also will allow us next year to be adding or to reintroduce Algebra 1 at grade 8. So that's very exciting at the middle school level. Working with the department chairs to develop course descriptions that I've been involved with discussions about what our course offerings and what scheduling is going to look like for next year. And we have some really innovative ideas and innovative ideas about scheduling. And I have gotten proposals, which I'll present next for the January meeting, for a variety of different courses that we would like to bring forward and have approved. And this will be able to provide AP courses to sophomores. And so introducing AP Research and AP Seminar, AP Pre-Calculus, and also looking at providing or offering a coding class, Python, at the high school level, because we have 3 levels of coding, science, computer science discoveries at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And we have computer science principles and AP computer science principles, but that's it. So what's one step further we can take, and that would be a coding program, a Python program. I'm working with my mentor this year to explore 2 areas in our high school, and that's looking at potential pathways and what does that look like in terms of with our current structure. Are there ways that we can develop pathways in our school? And also developing our life skills program to reflect the highest standards in that area, and visiting programs, and Janelle and I are working on that as well. I do want to highlight that when the U.S. News and World Report came out, Tohoto was identified as number 30, as 33 out of all Massachusetts high schools, and number 4 in the Worcester area schools. So that, is, and that is reflective of the AP offerings and scores and the level, the types and range of courses that we offer.
So just to, if you're paying close attention, what you're saying, offering algebra at an earlier age for our kids is an unbelievable opportunity for our kids. Our students can then be able to follow that chain and be able to, in their senior year, take Calculus BC, which is the hardest AP course offered in the entire world. Right, a student that gets a 3, 4, and 5 in that can absolutely, basically write their ticket in any college and university. That's the hardest AP course. But if we don't offer algebra earlier, which we're going to start doing next year, they can't fit that into the schedule. So that's a huge piece. Also offering AP opportunities at an earlier age for next year is the things that maintain kids, right? So when kids are applying to college and universities, everyone's resume looks really great out there, right? And now we have ways of really making our cover letters look even better, right? Electronically, right? Because there's ways of doing that now. But the advanced placement is the advanced placement. It stands across the entire world, right? From Australia, everywhere. So offering that is an incentive to keep our kids here and making sure that they're going to be successful when they apply to college and university. So good work on that. Jim?
I will be briefer because I didn't know we were bragging about our U.S. News and World Report scores. I would have worn my 111th T-shirt. Beginning of the year at Berlin Memorial, we all decided to take on, I think I shared this once, a school-wide goal around independence. Because the challenge for students today, their hands are held so much and so often that they, you let go of their hand, they don't know where they're going. And one of the places we see that is in mathematics, which was the focus of PD for us this year. So all of the teachers, most of the teachers, some had already had 2-year plans, but the teachers who were able to adopt at this school of enhancing independence in both learning and personal behavior. What that looks like in learning, and this is especially true because it is, in case you have not heard, the year of math and PD is getting kids to take ownership of the problems that they're being presented with. Everybody knows if you've had kids go through upper elementary school, word problems are just death to them. They want, they can do 17 minus 5, they can do 14 times 7, but you give them a story. Bill has 5 marbles and Jenny has 3 more. How many do they have all together? They can get lost because they don't take the time to think for themselves. What's the question here? So that's what we're working on in terms of academic excellence. We're blessed in Berlin. We have this amazing parent group. They do enrichment programs all the time. So I feel comfortable in the types of enrichment things that kids can access. They're very affordable. We've made arrangements through Link to fund kids who can't afford it. And there are, I would say by the end of the year, every kid's taken at least one. So I'm comfortable with our enrichment piece. I'm comfortable with the attitude that people are taking, holding kids more accountable for their own learning. And it's a lifestyle, because we talk about this every year. Tohoto ready. If they're not Tohoto ready, they're gonna get left behind. Middle school's hard. And they have to learn to work hard to be successful. So they can do algebra, for example, and do those things that we offer here.
Your Link PTO or Link. So impressive. I was at that meeting last week.
They're amazing.
The enrichment that they're offering those students, talk about developing the right brain of a child, not just the left brain academically, was incredible.
I will point out that it took an entire group of people to do what Ann Rosso used to do, but they are doing an amazing job. Very grateful.
And nicely led by you as well, too, John. So thank you for that. Nice work. Cindy?
Well, first, thank you for giving this opportunity. You know, we know, and looking at some of our data, that we have some work to do at Boylston. And one of the things you heard me say at the beginning of the year was we are going for gold. That is that growth mindset that I will say the staff at BES has dove into, and they are there. They are buying into this, and they are jumping in, and they are working on some things. And some of the things that I want to highlight and that I'm very proud of is, you know, the data drive. And we've said that before, and I want to talk to you about what that looks like at BES this year. So we're analyzing assessments and benchmarks and state testing to identify the things that we're doing well, but more importantly, the gaps, and adjusting our teaching methods to that. So during grade level meetings, during staff meetings, we are spending more time looking at the areas that we were weak on. So some of those areas that they identified were operations and algebraic thinking, fractions and decimals, geometry, for example, right angles, quadrilateral, symmetry, word problems, and ELA, parts of speech, proper nouns. And you think about that for a minute, and if we go deeper, that's more third, fourth, and fifth for those areas. Why? If we dove deeper, looking at K through 2, how are we going to support that? What are we doing in grammar in K through 2? Do we have resources to support that? The answer is no. What can we do to support that? What can we bring together for those grades to support? Because I don't think MCAS is grade 3 MCAS or grade 4 MCAS. I call it K to 3, K to 4, K to 5. They know that, so they want to work together to support, how can we support those younger skills in math, because it is the year of math, but also in ELA. What are we doing to support them? They're looking at math in those areas as well. Fractions. What can we do in kindergarten for fractions to support as they get into those older grades? So it's diving into the data, looking at it, what are we doing, what do we need, how do we support that? Some examples of that, we do have a win block this year, and this is where we're putting in that enrichment piece, and it's interesting that the enrichment came up. I still have it written on my whiteboard when I started last year, when I met with some of the families and the parents. That is an area they said that we did not do well in this district. What are we doing for enrichment? The win block allows for that piece. So the win block is what I need now. And what we do is we split up, we have 3 times in our schedule for most grades. It depends on the age. Kindergarten is not going to meet for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. They might meet for 20, 3 times a week. And they're working on the skills that our data is showing us we need to work on. 5th grade is working 3 times a week. And we are going across the grade level. So we have 3 5th grade teachers. There's a high level, the enrichment piece. We have a middle level, and we have a lower level that's working on those skills. Right now, they are working on, where do I have it? They are working on fractions and decimals, which we discovered was an area of weakness for us. That is an area that during our SABAS, it comes in later. They're working on it now based on what they've assessed in the data that they're doing. They're still going to teach it later on, but they're diving into now to give them that skill set until they get there. They've already adjusted their groups. I was amazed at this. They're looking at their data, they've adjusted it, and kids have moved across those groups. So they're getting those pieces. 4th grade is doing the same. We have 2 4th grade teachers. They're going across the classrooms to do that, and they're working on those skills. Their skill set is different, measurement data. How are they focusing on that? They're changing kind of the scope and sequence a little bit. And I'll be honest, we don't have that scope and sequence. It's something we'd like to work on going forward. But measurement and data was a weakness. They moved it up. Concern with that is, what are we moving back and how do we fit that in? So they're moving geometry back. We gotta be careful there. How are we fitting that into other places? Third grade noticed, and they're working on area and perimeter. Savas math resource, separated area and perimeter. As a former third grade teacher, area and perimeter go like this. Why are they separated? They ask, can we move them and teach them together? Absolutely. Let's do this and let's teach it together. We're looking at the data, they're saying, can we teach this together? And they're teaching. So they're bringing all those things in, they're looking at our resources, they're using this in our win block, and they're giving what the kids need. So we're getting some of that enrichment in, and we're doing it. I'm very proud of them for this because they are very open to it. They are going for the gold. And our younger grades are really looking at how we can support those older grades. And they're doing the win block as well. One of the things that we are trying to get the specialists involved in is doing kind of that cross-curriculum things. How can we support them in fractions? How can we see or math? How can we do symmetry? Art can do symmetrical snowflakes. And how can we do that? And I know that we've talked about that doing further down in PD. How can we get that math into those areas? And you know we're working on attendance, and I have to brag a little about this. This is a team effort with everybody involved. In order to teach them, they got to be there. And we've made some progress already. So last year at this time, I sent out 48 letters according to our policy if you have over 5 days. This year, 21. That's huge. So I'm proud of our team, and we're going to keep going there, and we're going to get there. Thank you for letting me share.
So here are 3 prime examples of excellence, right? All really great stuff. But we still don't have that overarching, what is our goal, right? Great stuff going on in Tohoto, great stuff going on in Berlin, great stuff going on in Williston. But it's all just like this, right? So we need to have a common thread of what we're all doing, because they're all our kids. They all eventually go up to work the way to Tohoto, what it looks like and what our expectations are. So that's the work we have to do. We own that. We all agree. There's no one in this room to say, no, we don't need that. We know that. So that's the work that Sally and I are doing. We're basically interviewing groups that are going to come in and help us do this work as a strategic plan. And that will be the umbrella that all these other pillars will fall underneath, including the budget as well.
And we'll keep getting updates on that.
Every month you're going to have this on the agenda.
I would imagine some 8th grade parents are starting to look what they're going to be doing next year. So if they know this is going on, maybe that influences them a little bit.
It's great. Yep, I agree. The last thing, and then I'll be quiet, I promise. So the last thing you're going to see is we're changing our website. And wait till you see our new website that's coming out. We're initiating it first at Tohoto, and then I worked our way to Berlin, Williston. We'll be finalizing that tomorrow at our admin meeting, where we're getting professional learning on how to do evaluations better with teachers. But we're really ready to launch right before Christmas, the new website for Tohoto. And like I said, we'll mirror it for both of us. The website is the way that we're engaging our families, right? Not only for our parents that are here, but parents that are moving into the community and saying, hey, let me just check out the school district. And having that be active and interactive and current, you're going to see a whole difference. So I'm hoping that at January's meeting, we're going to be able to show you what it looks like and get your feedback on that. But that's a huge piece, because even myself, when I was first, asked about Berlin Wilson, I went right on the website, right? And what does it show and what doesn't it show? And that's the work we're working on now, making it interactive and making it so it's tied to our social media as well too. So you'll start seeing that as well too. That's another big piece we're going to have. Thank you.
Any quick final questions? Yes.
So there was a 3-year plan that is in the drive, and I think not all of those goals were addressed in that 3 years, so that might be a.
Is it district improvement plan?
Yes.
Title of the district.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I just Googled 3-year plan and it popped up. And then there was also portrait of a graduate that was done with a huge group of parents, staff, and students and former students too. So that
I've been
is
looking at
somewhere
that.
too, yeah.
I would say that our strategic plan is here, and then you look at the school improvement plans as a pillar, district improvement plans. I'm really not familiar with a portrait of a graduate right now.
I think it's like that's up here somewhere.
Yeah, but I really do believe, and then there's equity audits as well too. There's all those pieces that fit as pillars underneath there, but we really need to, what are we doing as a district and what direction do we want to move in? And that should be what the school committee holds on to as well too, to say, this is what you said we were gonna do, and hold our, sort of our feet to the fire.
Yeah, the Portrait of a Graduate kind of speaks to that direction.
Okay. I honestly, I haven't had a chance to really read it yet and look at it, and that will probably be one of the things I'm working on next.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Next up is Aaron.
Alrighty. So, howdy everyone. So I'll just dive into it. You have a memo in the shared file regarding the 2025 budget. Desi is breathing down our necks a little bit to have a voted 2025 budget. So in crunching the numbers, we do believe that our revenues can support the budget figure of $24,793,688, broken into the assessments to Berlin and Boylston that were voted at town meetings. So we would humbly request that the school committee vote that. We will then share that information with Desi and move forward in fiscal 20.
So Desi's asking us for, well, they're
Yes.
not asking us, but they're asking us to vote on this.
Yes, to basically affirm what we believe the budget to be.
Right.
The grace period with Desi is over for us. Yeah, they're not as forgiving as they were maybe a month ago.
Yep. Okay, so this is on the agenda right here as a vote if needed, so you're saying we.
I'm saying we should probably vote it as an affirmation vote.
All right, so I'll just read your recommendation there as the motion. May I have a motion, please, that the Berlin Boylston Regional School Committee vote to affirm the fiscal 2025 school district budget totaling $24,793,688, resulting in assessments of $8,142,194.67 from the town of Berlin, $13,089,986 to the town of Boylston.
So moved.
Megan?
Second.
Lori? Would anyone like to discuss this?
Just to confirm,
Yeah.
these numbers are what was verbally agreed upon, but not presented at the Berlin meeting by accident by Berlin. And they had passed a higher number, but this is a number that we'd agreed upon in the meeting before that town meeting. And then thus Berlin's assessment, Boylston's assessment is lower, which is allowed under the law without a new vote. Is that
Correct. Both towns have committed to these assessments. They are both paying these assessments as we speak. So, we're confident that towns, support this. We've talked to, I believe, both April and Kristen. They're prepared to support these assessments.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against this budget? All right, unfavorable, that motion passes. Thank you very much, Aaron. I know
Great.
accounting work is great fun.
We'll start working on that and make things right in this year's budget. With that said, you do have a copy of a presentation we shared with the town of Boylston last night. That seemed to go pretty well. We will have a similar presentation for Berlin. We're making sure I've got the pronunciation right.
Much appreciated.
So we will present that tomorrow night in town, and once both of those are done, I will combine them. I didn't want to present information to Boylston that Berlin wouldn't have, so Berlin's side of the equation will be presented tomorrow, and then we'll have a combined presentation for both towns. There. Okay. And then I am just going to share a few things going on in the department. We've made a lot of progress, and I feel pretty good about it. So just a bullet list of items to fire away and just make you aware of. So we have posted all fiscal 24 payroll. I think we shared with you that there were summer pays that had not been posted yet and had to be teased out a bit. And those were the teacher summer pays. So we have booked those teacher summer pays, and those are in our accounting system. All FY24 accounts payable is complete. So there may be something out there we don't know about, but everything we know about is paid. So we're doing our best there, and I think we're in good shape. With those two items done, we are now in the formal process of closing fiscal '24. There's going to be some reconciling of May and June, and that's going to be a little work to do. I've done some reconciling. We're going to be working with Cynthia Harrington in our office to kind of fully close that out. There will be some receivables to book, things that came in that didn't get booked, but for the most part. With that said, that means we can begin work on the end of year report. So a lot the DESE breathing down our throats, our necks. We've received emails from DESE for our end of year report. I've worked with Jay Sullivan of DESE, and we will be submitting that report by January 3rd. So I'll be working on that over the next few weeks and probably over the holidays. Once we fully close fiscal '24, we will begin the E&D calculation. That's something you can't do until you have all of your accounts sort of settled and done. The end of year report, we can begin a little bit in advance, pre-closing. We have installed, configured, and trained on the receivables module in our fiscal software. I think I shared with you that up until now, it seems the district has been booking all of their receivables through journal entries, which is one way of doing it. It's not the most efficient or effective way of doing it. I've been booking some things using journal entries, but now that we have the receivable software, it'll make that a lot more efficient. All of our fiscal '25 bills are current with the sole exception of Amazon, which usually takes a little more reconciling. And I think if Amazon waits an extra couple days, they'll be okay. So we have paid fully Amazon through September, and we're moving into October to make sure that they're paid full. All fiscal '25 payroll to date will be posted by next week. I'm working with our payroll coordinator to make sure that all of our payroll files, so we have paid everyone, I think as we know, but we do need to book those into our system. So we have a methodology to do that. We will make sure that is on our system. All FY '25 grant accounts and budgets have been entered. So I think when I arrived, we had some situations where a number of our grant accounts, the actual account numbers and then the budgets were never entered in the system. That led some people to having to book things in, I guess the best word for it is hidey holes. So things were booked in account numbers that weren't necessarily the correct account numbers. So in that process, in addition, today I completed a number of adjusting entries to correct some of those expenditures that were made in improper accounts. Those should all be accurate. We'll be double checking with folks. I want to make sure I'm not 100%, but I think we're there. I think you should, given all of that, you should expect to see a fiscal '25 general fund budget report at the January 14th meeting. I think that was a conversation that I had with the chair, Mike. And I felt like that was doable. So we are committing to getting you guys an actual financial report, which I know we stand, which I think is fair. A couple things that are pending. We have a number of grant draws and closing reports that need to be done. That's sort of next on my list. And then we will work on properly booking our fiscal '25 revenue. So those are things we can operate on without doing immediately. The money is in the bank, so when we receive money, it goes into the bank, but we need it recorded properly in our financial system. And that's something that wasn't happening. Additionally, grant draws bring in some of that revenue. We aren't hugely grant dependent, but we really should be doing those grant draws on a regular basis, typically quarterly or monthly. So that is about it. I feel pretty good about where we are. I really want to say that Patty, our payroll coordinator, and Arnold, our new accounts payable coordinator, have been doing a fantastic job, and I couldn't be doing any of this without them. So thank you.
You really have a really good financial office right now. So we're very fortunate with that. So, hiding hole, was that word? It's
great. Just hide this.
Same thing, come on.
Secret little place.
And just one last thing, Nicole, do you have exactly captured the vote and the numbers and all that? Because we're going to need that for the Department of Education. So all of that.
You have that written. Yeah.
I read it.
On the budget.
Yeah.
It's in the memo,
So we
it's in
just
the
need to
drive.
make sure we have that
Yeah.
to share that with them to make sure they know.
Sure.
that moving forward. Okay, thank you.
We'll get that.
Thanks, Aaron. I mean,
Yep.
I had my own PTSD with thousands of accounting transaction lines back in the day, so I understand exactly what you're looking at, and I don't envy you at all.
Thank you.
But thank you for coming and sorting through all
It is
that.
what it is. We're actually having a good time with it. I mean, as funny as it sounds, I mean,
we're enjoying it.
I mean, every time something new comes up, we have a good laugh, and I laugh to keep from crying. So. There's nothing we can do. Lighting our hair on fire and running around screaming doesn't help anything.
And as you can tell,
I'd rather
so
just roll up my
it's
sleeves.
so
and get
different
it
than
done.
mine. He's so different than
So,
mine.
So
It's a good match.
we're gonna get there.
Yep.
All
Thanks.
right, thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions for Aaron? All right. Next, technology update, I think we're gonna skip.
Yeah, we're gonna hold off until January if we could.
All right, looking forward to the new website, that'd be nice. All right, so next, a little bit of business for us, subcommittee appointments. Jess, I did hear from you. So we have policy and negotiations, budget safety and facilities, and student success and control. Policy and negotiations are currently in the middle of some work right now, obviously negotiations starting up. Budget safety and facilities, it used to be Megan and Julie. Julie's clearly no longer here, we have an election for that. And so Beth, you had mentioned you being okay on that committee, is that something you're interested in?
I don't think I mentioned that, but Julie might have mentioned that.
Hey, no, you know what, I'm not gonna ask you to do anything you don't want to do.
Oh, no, personally, I'm interested in policy. I understand if it's not a good time to do that, I can defer that to later. If it's a better fit for budget, that's fine. I just wanted to say, as far as negotiations goes, I did the chartering the course class
Yes.
this past weekend, and there was someone there that was new to their committee. They were on a 7-person committee. They had a 3-person negotiating team, and he was the alternate. I didn't know if that was something that we would ever be interested in, that maybe if someone that was interested in joining the negotiations to keep things moving, in case there was ever a conflict or a conflict of like timing, or personality, or maybe someone's better suited to jump in or get out. Is that something that?
Yeah, and an alternate actually is, I think we had.
That makes us a quorum if 4 of us are.
We
there.
did not have an alternate when Laurie and I did it,
Yeah.
and it actually was a problem because I got COVID and
Yeah.
then it threw everything off. So you can have
But I think if
3.
there's 3 of us, we do have an alternate, right?
You can have 3 in, but you can't have 4.
Yeah, because 4 is a quorum.
Yeah,
so
you can
it's
have
fine.
3.
You have 2 right now,
So
right?
There's 2 on negotiations.
Right.
Currently.
So a third
So say a
alternate.
third,
to
right,
sit
that's
in-
what I was saying, would be-
Sit on the meetings would be okay. It's
Right,
not a
that
quorum.
was my point.
It's not a- Okay,
Yeah.
It's not a
Yes.
quorum.
Yeah.
I know, Jess, you were also interested in negotiations. I think Jess, just more seniority, sorry.
No, I've been going to suggest Jess.
So if we were gonna do an alternate, I think that's a good idea. Jess, would you like to do that? Okay. Sorry, Beth.
No, that was my suggestion. That's why I brought it up.
Okay.
Suggestion.
The budget committee, subcommittee, I think it would be good to have someone from Berkeley.
Yeah.
Lisa, unless you're on technology and student success, if you would like to do that, or what do you think?
I would love to be on the budget subcommittee, and I'm not even sure about the student success and technology subcommittee anyway. Like, it's
Okay.
kind of unclear what the purpose is, and we really barely ever met. And I don't know, I kind of thought that we should rethink that one.
That's fair, yeah. Jess, you're the chair of that, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amorphous, right? So like student success and technology kind of sometimes talks about policies, but we're not the policy subcommittee, right? And so, we both went to the conference, and so that was actually great, so we could talk about that and then kind of shrink everything down. We never really were able, I think with all the budget drama in the spring, we were never able to have a meeting to hash out a mission statement for that particular committee, so.
Mike, through the chair, can I ask that we keep that committee, because I think we're gonna, there's some work that I'm working on with the technology. I'm looking to have a 5-year technology plan, and instead of it all being presented to school committee all the time, I'd like to be working through the subcommittee of that. We don't have a 5-year, or even a 3-year plan. And that was one of the things that came up when we were in the meeting last night, like, what's your plan for computers? Like, well, how are you rolling those over? How many times are you buying new computers? What's the lifespan? What's insurance? Like, so all of that is a lot that needs to be done, and my goal is to get that done right after the holidays, start working on that. And I don't want to do it with all school committees, so I'd like to keep that technology committee in place to vet it through them.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, but if Lisa wants to come on, if she's Berlin, she could come on budget, and then you can let Beth do the student success and technology.
Everybody
With
good?
Jess. So then Jess will be on 2.
Jesse,
You're on
yeah,
2.
I understand what you're saying.
You're
about
on
that,
2.
Jesse.
We're
It
both
seems
only
a
on
little-
1, but it's
Barbara's
budget,
a little
so
bit-
we'll
it
have
is
to
the
meet
newest one,
monthly.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
there's
Maybe
a
come to
need,
get a
but I
direction.
think
Maybe a
nailing down
refresh.
like a
Yep.
little mission
Restart.
statement.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, I just don't want to vet it, the purpose of the policy meeting is right, so I can vet it through them, a smaller group, and then they can bring it to the whole school committee. And there's a lot of work we're gonna do in the next couple of months, as you'll see shortly, that needs to get done with that.
Yeah, I mean, at that committee too, like we've addressed like cell phone policies, and that's kind of, you know, obviously it's a policy, but there's a lot of research and stuff to be, I guess, presented to the policy subcommittee.
So how about that? So we'll do that, restart it with a bit more direction, a bit more activity. If there is something that comes up that crosses with policy, one policy and one success committee member can meet, together, something like that.
And I think the optics of it look really good that we're having this, because both towns have asked me about, like, what are we doing with computers? What are we doing with technology? They're on the capital every year, or what do you, so I think for us to dissolve that, I don't think is a good thing for us to do.
So we'll restart that, get more attention, more activity there. Lisa on budget with Megan for Berlin. All right.
She
So-
had 2 other things. She
Yeah.
had an idea, and then I think,
Okay,
so obviously this year we'll have subcommittee of superintendent search as well, which would be Laurie, me, and Jess. Jess, that's
Right.
a lot for you, or you?
I wouldn't want to chair the technology then. You might be in the right direction.
you want to do it?
I mean,
It
it's,
feels-
yeah,
yeah.
totally.
All right. so-
And then next year we'll have to add a superintendent eval, which is a whole other.
Yeah,
I
so
thought
we'll
we'd have
swap
to do that
those.
this year.
Yeah.
So I apologize, when I said about the 4, Mike, I was thinking about the 3 of us being on the negotiations, and I don't know why I keep putting, I'm sorry, on the
Superintendent.
superintendent, so I keep putting that together with negotiations. So that's why I thought we already
That
had,
comes after.
right, no, but in my head, I was thinking there were 3 of us already on it, if we add another one, it'd be a quorum, so that's where
Yeah.
my confusion was.
All right. So
So
technology and success, Beth with Jess, budget, Megan with Lisa,
Mhm.
and policy negotiation will stay with Lori. All right,
But Jess will go,
and Jess will be the alternate for negotiations, yes.
and Lisa had an idea.
Yes.
I was thinking we should have a communications subcommittee where we can share more information on social media, important things that are coming up, things we're considering, highlight successes, just kind of build a lot more goodwill and excitement in the community.
Would that work with technology and your new website?
I think once you see what the website's looking like, it's like, I'm amazed on the work that goes behind the scenes in developing the website that's so interactive that if we could just wait for the next month to show you what that looked like, I think that might tie really nicely, that all of you could, as school committee members, be providing information to that and uploading it. So, and there's going to be a district website as well too. So I think if we could just give me a month, I think we'll be able to show you what it's going to look like, and that will help out with communication tremendously.
All right, can we put communications on the next agenda? Communications. All right, thank you, Nicole.
So Mike, I'm sorry, who's on
Yes.
negotiations, the final committee for negotiations?
Me and Lori with Jess as the alternate, so Jess would be in communications.
Also, for negotiations, it's something you guys can decide, but it came up last night. They wanted to know, usually we have a municipal rep, and they take turns.
Okay.
So Boylston did it 3 years ago.
I said, it's Berlin's turn.
They wanted to make sure that they were not going to get pulled into that.
And that was at April.
Yeah, it was April, so it would be Kristen. They both come to the ground rules, right?
Yes, and then they mutually
And then
decide.
they have to decide, and then they kind of set forth, like, this
All
is, so just let me know.
And we will be, we've got a list of dates to respond to the teams tonight. Yep. Okay, so we'll get, you'll get in touch with Kristen for us?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. I'm switching to my phone because my battery died. Sorry.
So we don't have to vote, it's you just appoint.
I know, some, I don't agree with it.
Yeah, it's just an appointment.
All right, next item on the list is BBRSD attorney consideration. So, something that has come up, looking at different ways to move forward, new direction, financially save money. We've had the idea of possibly reaching out to a new attorney or taking, signing on a new attorney for the district. Currently, it's Merrick O'Connell. So that has come up, that's an item, the business items, if we want to do that, to vote, so. I know we received a proposal, has anyone had a chance to look at that, do you have anything to say about that?
Hourly rate seems a significant savings.
Yeah, financially, yeah, it's a good deal financially.
I also appreciated that it was a small firm. Just thinking back to the other educational attorney that we used, who was wonderful, but he had a lot, and it's, knowing that they're small is also helpful.
Okay.
If I could also say, this is a law firm that I work with in Worcester, I work with in Hampton, Wilbraham, Aaron and I work with there as well too, and did all of our negotiations. And currently also doing multiple negotiations, which is very helpful to us as we start the negotiations process as well too.
All right. So that'll come up under business items to vote to accept that if you like. Subcommittee updates next. Anybody, so Jess, do you have an update?
Yeah, so when Megan became chair, she handed over or offered for me to be on the Boylston Master Plan Implementation Committee.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, and so there is a very lengthy document you can review at your leisure, but I kind of summed up about 10 or 12 items that I thought were relevant, so our job is to say what in that master plan can we check off, can we own, can we do? And so I emailed about a month back, but I'll forward it again to the admin team as well, to see what things that perhaps I've already done, or even there's a possible project that high school students could do to create a QR code and a tour of the town. So I can forward that to the admin team to see if they have any thoughts on the matter, so I can give an update from our committee. And then, so last year, we both went down to the conference, and so we had an opportunity to have a meeting. We haven't had a meeting since the November conference, but there were some really great talks about budgets and, coming 2 years ago, what the next happening. And so it's really nice to get grounded in some of the topics and, knowing what a call center is and that we should be receiving quarterly report projections for the budget and new job descriptions are changed or added, we should be approving them. Also, not in my tenure here, operating protocols or something I learned about that we should be discussing within the committee, creating together and periodically revising, and then also signing us members and also the superintendent. And our self-eval is based on those operating protocols, and then also being posted on the website. So that is something I wasn't aware of. And so I thought that was of interest to us. And that was it.
Megan, do you have any update?
So we have not had a meeting, but I believe we are finally going to do it next week now that we have our committee. So we'll try to touch base before break and with Lisa and Aaron and Al, if you want.
Lori, superintendent search,
Yep, so we just had those two companies present to us. I'm going to set up a meeting where we can discuss and present. Do you want it at the next meeting, you said? For us to
yeah,
present
so we
our
probably need to get
recommendation?
started,
or-
we need to get started on this, yeah.
Okay,
So,
we can do that.
I think at our next meeting, we should decide, are we gonna go with one of those two?
Yep.
We're gonna do it on our own, what are we gonna do? We'll take, input from your subcommittee.
Wonderful. We'll do that. Great.
Can I just ask, but your subcommittee meetings, where do you have those meetings? Do you want?
Central
Okay, good. just
Your
so-
office.
Good, okay, good, just.
We'll be munching on your snacks.
Tell you what, those milk Oreos.
Yeah.
You are an excellent host.
More stuff.
Yes.
Policy subcommittee update, might as well just get into business items, because that's all we have there for policies. So if we can take our business items first, if we can do the policies first. So there's 3 first reads. Student absence and excuses and attendance, JH and JE. They're marked in there. One is a removal, and the other is to just update some language that had been updated last year. A couple of small changes in there for you to take a look at. And this will give us one comprehensive attendance policy, attendance being a big deal in elementary school this year, right? Come to school so you can actually learn. No vacations during school days, right? Okay. So that's first read, and then the student dress code is in there for first read. The administration made some changes to that as well, so we've got that in there for you to look at. We'll vote on those in January. The service animals in school update, this is on there for a vote because it's a very small change, but important one. Al, do you want to say anything about that?
Sure, so we, myself, and Mike, and the board, Laurie, sorry, I was going, sorry, had a chance to have a meeting. We got a policy, and we met with the chief of police as well as the comfort dog that they are bringing in to the community. So one of the things that, John and I have spoken about, right? So where does that fit in? Whether we're having pets, allowing pets in school, or whether we're having service animals in school. So it did fit in either spot. Then we eventually all agreed that it does sort of fit in that service animals in school. And just so you know, where a comfort dog is different than a service animal, right? So a comfort dog wouldn't be if there was something that took place, if there was a tragedy that took place, or there was a situation that took place. This dog would come in and work with our students, work with our staff, work with our faculty, and we had an opportunity, Laurie, Mike, and myself had an opportunity to meet the dog. It's incredible, right? It just really is a comforting animal. And this is something that's happening throughout not only the entire state, but also happening through the entire country, right, in light of everything going on. But in fairness to what's happening in Berlin, we want to keep our policies, and that was not anywhere in the policy of adding that in. So we're asking on IMGA service animals in school that I'm adding to the very last paragraph where it says the superintendent of schools or their designee shall be responsible for the developing procedures to accommodate the student's use of an assistance animal in district facilities and on school transportation vehicles. And then I'm adding to that, this is also to include comfort dogs to be available in our schools. And that's what I'm asking, I think, to vote on tonight if we could, because it's such a minimal change. But there is a little bit of a sense of urgency. I'm working with our dogs in our community. And even last night, on Monday night, Berlin had their town meeting, right? And they were able to bring the dog in there. So they just want to make sure we have that in place. Whether it's a school event or not a school event, we can bring that dog.
Yeah, 3 hours, 80-something people who sign home barking while they.
Wow.
Jinx.
It truly is.
Very cute picture of the two interacting.
Yeah. Fire.
The fire and the police, yes, yes.
Yep. Okay, so could I please have a motion to approve policy IMGA service animals in school as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Lisa?
It was Laurie.
Lori. Okay. Anyone like to discuss?
My only concern is that a lot of people say they have comfort dogs, so I don't know if you need the verbiage to say approved comfort dogs. So like, I know it's like a company that will bring it in, or like a fire, or the police, so I just feel like just saying comfort dogs leaves it wide open for someone to say, I can bring my doctor note of comfort dog.
It says the superintendent, yeah, the paragraph says the superintendent will develop procedures,
Okay.
so that would be covered.
And just for clarity, Maureen, Mike and I asked the question, like, they can't just show up, right? They can't just show up at schools and say, hi, I know what the content is. They would either have to pre-arrange through myself or the principals, but also if there was a reason to bring the conflict dog in. We're not just going to interrupt instruction. We're not going to just have them walking up and down the hallways. But this way, we have this in place in case there's a necessity.
All in favor of the motion? Against? All right, I'm in favor as well, so that will pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, last item is the approval of, so we can discuss it. May I have a motion to approve the change in BBRSD attorney to go with the law offices of Sean Sweeney, PC? Jess?
Second.
Lisa? All right, would anyone like to discuss that?
You're here.
Just having the ability to call and someone pick up the phone and give us answers when we need them in a timely manner is crucial for us to do our work safely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against?
Me.
Megan is against. I am in favor as well, so that motion passes. I will call Kim and Mark tomorrow. And there are some things we're going to talk about next that we're wrapping up, but we'll continue to work on that current work. All right, may I have sorry.
The first read, I just have a clarification.
Yeah, okay.
on that. So you said one's getting deleted and one's getting edited, which?
JH is being deleted.
JE is being deleted?
JH. It's the first one. It's just redundant. JE we passed last year. It was just an oversight that we didn't have them. We didn't vote to remove JH. JE, MASC suggested we replace JH with JE.
And I think I pulled a mistake there, because I think JH was voted on even before I came here. I think you guys voted at a previous meeting, and sometime in spring, that JH was out of there completely. So I gotta go back and look at Cole.
It was September, Lisa, it was September 10th.
The September 10th.
Oh, and I apologize, it was what I was saying, so I won't that even more.
So, do you mind if I clarify?
Go ahead.
So on Tuesday, September 10th, there was a revised budget. It appears as though the business item identifies approval up to remove policy JH. But when speaking with Nicole, it looked as though it was tabled. So that's where I think the confusion was.
Yes. Why was it something happened?
Because we were going to revise it.
That's right.
So
All right.
that's there now. Okay. So that will all coincide in January with the handbook discussion.
So JE is the one we're keeping.
Yes.
And so the highlighted edits are the changes to be made to that policy. I was curious under section 2, the B, it says Dr. Dennis appointment card letter note from physician / dentist is going to be deleted. So I was curious, and I know under section 7, there's excusal notes from doctor, dentist must be given within 14 days, but I'm curious why that is being deleted for exceptions or absences.
Yes.
Because we're getting a lot of blanket notes. So what we want is very specific notes for specific things. So there are 3 parental excusals per at Tohoto, it's per semester, so 6 per year. So if you so choose to use it on that, if there's an extended absence for a specific medical condition, we have, waiver procedures in place for extended period of time. If it's a doctor's appointment, it should be considered within one of the parental excusals.
Okay, so then I guess for illnesses, so I mean, one of my children had a fever for 5 days because of the microplasma. pneumonia, and then
Right.
my second kid got it and had fever for 4 days.
Right, so you
So-
have to get a doctor's note. It's
So
just
that
a-
still falls under that? It's like, as
Well-
long as I give it within 14 days? I just was confused why it was getting deleted. I understand, like, as a provider, my kid was absent these 10 days here and these 15 days here, can you write an excuse note? Like, well, you weren't seen. So I understand that reasoning.
Right.
But I guess for illnesses that are more than a day, I don't know, maybe I'm not understanding it. So no doctor's notes are now accepted except for extended illnesses?
So a doctor's or dentist appointment. So it's not illness. It's a doctor or dentist appointment. So that is the exception. So it's an appointment.
So a kid
So-
comes into school at 9, leaves at 10:30, an appointment, comes back at 1. Or doesn't.
What, no, so, right, it's like they come in 8:30, or they come in, they're dismissed at 9, and they're absent for the rest of the day. It's trying to curtail those types of situations. So it's for appointments.
Okay, so hypothetically, if someone has braces, that's a monthly or every
Well,
6 weeks
hopefully they
appointment.
would come back to school.
So as long as they come
110%,
back, yeah.
but I don't know how that covers a person for only, being left for 45 minutes versus, I don't see how that
The notes are
encourages.
for full day, and if you have an appointment, to make that class period, you are present for that class period. That's what we're saying?
Right, so absence is not counted, so it's like a full day absence. So we don't want full day absence for doctors or dentist appointments.
Amen.
So that's really
But I guess
the
I'm not
issue.
seeing how that's delineated. I just totally didn't get that by reading this policy.
Yeah, I misunderstood that.
I don't know.
That might need to be like, a little bit.
Like, it's really hard to get an appointment after school hours for a dentist or
Right,
a broken hand or
but
orthodontist,
hopefully,
so-
like they don't take most of the day off for that
Right. I would
appointment.
hope most parents,
Right.
but I don't see how that is delineated within this
I know
policy.
there'd be like language put in that says like the school prioritizes.
So let me ask, so let's do first read, right? And then if we have comments and coming back, we'll actually have Lisa, Renee, and Rich come because they're working on that with us. And so at the next school committee meeting, we can talk about that as well too.
Like, I wholly support that and, even as a provider, I'm like, okay, I'll give you 1 hour to go back to school. So I wholly support that. I don't read it that way.
So don't forget that there is, under 6, a waiver of the policy will be heard by the principal or assistant principal. So there are exceptions that can be made.
Lisa, can I ask a question? How long do the students need to be in school for it to be considered a full day?
It has to be half the day.
So,
But it used to be like 11:09, so I don't know how many periods that's equivalent to. It used to be like 5 out of 7.
but that gives you at least a
Right.
couple hours.
Right,
For braces.
right, 5 out of 7.
So perhaps worded like no more than 2 periods can be missed for an appointment or
So we
something.
got to raise the policy, right? So it's got to come, it comes out.
At
the
whole
district.
district.
Right.
See, that I think is the piece, we can have specific things in the handbook that delineate more specific for schools, but just as Mr. Ganem said, this is an attendance policy in general for the
You just
district.
spell it out in the Tohoto handbook.
Right, yeah, you can't, because it doesn't,
I mean, in 2 sections, there's already an elementary school and middle and high school. So under the 1, class attendance, it splits out elementary school, middle school, and then under 5, it does as well. So I just maybe ask that be looked at, as, again, a working parent, that's unrealistic. I just.
We also want to make so that parents just don't make appointments at 10:05. right, or 11:30, right? Because that's when, we're trying to have parents be a little bit mindful of, like, trying to get those appointments. I know everyone else is trying to get them either after school or before school or during vacations, but we also don't want it to be just like a complete, like, pass to say, yeah, you got 10 o'clock open, I'll go at that time.
100%, but I challenge that with, like, my pediatrician doesn't do physicals in the afternoon. They only do them in the morning. And I
The
asked,
orthodontist does not do appointments after school, it's reserved for only specific.
But you would bring your child back to school
Right.
for the appointment. I think the argument
100%,
that,
so I just,
and
I
they
don't.
times, yeah, I think the
Yeah.
argument that Lisa's making is people were kind of abusing that.
I'm confident
100%.
because I have an orthodontist appointment.
Yeah.
To let you have
Okay,
committed.
I was not picking up on
Yeah,
that,
so I
because I was
support
hearing what Jess.
curtailing that,
Okay.
but it just, the verbiage
needs to
that's
spend
left does not.
So you can still take your kid out for an appointment, you just have to bring them back and it's excused.
Well, that time,
This policy doesn't say that, I don't know.
Yeah, that's confusing, and this is not
hold on.
just a Hunter, it's district-wide, right?
Why don't you take it back to your meetings?
Yep, we can talk about this tomorrow.
All right.
And 2 more seconds, so the very last thing, number 8, it says parents are to call or use the dismissal management system at the elementary level. In this day and age, we can now email the night before, so I don't have to wake up, we do it BS, but not
Right.
at Tohoto. So I just, if the verbiage is email, like 3 different people, like the principal, the nurse, and the whatever, I just.
So if we're trying to channel in to either, if they're using that dismissal management. We all know that sometimes, myself included, I haven't looked at email Wednesday, so sometimes that doesn't necessarily always happen depending on what takes place. So we're trying to really use a system across the package.
Then can we use the dismissal app at Tohoto as well?
What?
Use the dismissal app. I asked that.
So we're gonna look at that. Who's on the technology subcommittee, by the way? So that'll be one of the first things that we take a look at as well. Because we have the ability, we just have to do it yet.
I'm just reading this, this is, I am guilty of this, like, we've
You are.
gone away, I've forgotten to put it in the thing, 8:30 comes and goes, I don't answer my phone, they're gonna call the chief of police?
Not
No,
anymore, we checked
not
that out.
anymore. That's the old one.
We
Oh,
checked
all
that
right, you'll be at the old one.
The poor chief of police said, what the heck?
He's at Megan's door.
They'll just be like, oh, it's her, yeah.
That wasn't, yes.
City will shoot you
We'll go-
too.
We'll get that updated. right?
Yeah, we could,
I'm sorry to drag
Yep.
that further. I have several commentaries on the dress code policy.
All right, feel free.
So I think that private parts is not a great, I don't think that the verbiage is going to suffice. I think that's going to leave the district open to, I don't know, a liability of what constitutes that and an argument back and forth.
What would you suggest?
I think you have to spell it out, and I went to Neshoba's policy, clothing that reveals nipples, genitalia, and buttocks. They literally spell it out, and then you say, I think you need to spell it out, but I also want to bring to your attention that if you're going to spell it out, that applies to male students as well. And what was pointed out to me by a teacher in another district several years ago was that you have boys cutting the sleeves off their shirt. That would be a dress code violation. Track shirts, those door uniforms all meet the standards. Are you gonna make all the boys wear shirts to the uniforms? Like,
So let's be really clear, this is not just for girls, but it's for girls and
Right.
boys that we know. But I don't disagree about the private class. I would ask, MASC and Tracy Novick, like, to give us some other areas, that other districts that are using it, or some input you might want to give us in terms of that, because it's an issue, and we're seeing it more and more.
totally get it. I have a 15-year-old girl, I understand. I'm just telling you that I think that you might find yourself in the position where the boys basketball team is practicing in their practice jerseys with the low, like that's, and we're giving them to them. Do some of our uniforms go against this policy? Do we need to look at those?
Does this apply to sports uniforms or is this for class?
I would hope if we're giving them to them.
No, because they wear their uniforms to school during the day, is what she's saying, like.
Oh,
Like, that's why you have to dress up, right? Or at least used to,
But I
historically.
mean, if we're issuing them uniforms that don't meet standards for
I
our
guess
policy,
Do you mind if I ask Tracy to chime in a little, because I think she's chomping over there, to give us a little more information? I'm not chomping, sorry. I see you smiling, and never chomping, sorry, I apologize. Ron.
yes, have at it.
I mean, our recommendation honestly is that the policy, as opposed to the procedure, the policy should not actually get super specific, because it does very quickly devolve into that kind of deliberation for a school committee. You absolutely need to make sure that it's gender neutral. And to your point, yes, it is generally standard that, students often will wear their uniforms on game days, and then is the outfit that you told them that they had to wear in violation of the code that you've also imposed. So, I mean, I've seen, honestly, what we've seen is more districts moving towards, and this may or may not be where you're at, dress codes that much more are, you need to be wearing something on top, you need to be wearing something on bottom, and you need to be wearing shoes. And really getting into heights and inches and lengths and everything else very quickly can devolve into things that are discriminatory in terms of things like body type as well. And we certainly have seen reflections of that. It most often is female students who will complain of it, but then you also get into discriminatory kinds of things in terms of race and class.
So.
Did I just complicate your issue?
You did. Good job.
Well, I think we had that policy that was very land and neutral, but then there's been a lot of things hanging out that don't want to.
So we've heard this from parents.
Just say things that
She did.
Yes, I swear.
She did say that. I was gonna move right along. But we're seeing inappropriate dress for both males and females, right? And it's unacceptable. And we need to be able to say, that's what the policy is, and that's what we're working with MASC for, to say, here's a policy that says that you can't have things exposed, you can't have things hanging out, whatever. You gotta have the appropriate clothing. And so we gotta decide what that looks like for our male and female students.
I would suggest if everyone wants to look at I can send it to you, you can look it up, the Neshoba policy, pages 35 and 36. They break it down, I think it might more meet what you're looking for, and then at the end, it does have a line that says, with our core values in mind, all students should be able to dress comfortably for school and engage in learning without fear of body shaming or being singled out in front of peers. Reasons for conflict and inconsistent and equitable discipline should be minimized whenever possible. Teachers should be allowed to focus on teaching without additional burden of dress code enforcement. Teachers with specific student concerns should forward them to assistant principal.
Is this a yearbook or is this a policy?
So this is the Neshoba policy. That was like the last line of it.
Or is it policy?
Their handbook, I'm sorry, their handbook.
Handbook.
That's a handbook.
So that's more specific.
So this was created by the administrative team, correct?
That's correct.
Is there, what on here do people have issue with, I think is probably the question.
Saying private parts is.
That's okay, no, I agree with that, but
Vague,
I heard something about ripped clothing,
I'm
and I'm
just
reading this
saying
and I
that,
don't
like,
see it
I
in
think
here.
that
Nipples, if you change.
if
the
you're gonna
words.
sit there and say that that's what we're not looking for,
Yeah.
just be aware that you need to enforce it evenly and that you might be capturing a lot more of a
Gotcha.
population that's
I didn't
not
make that
looking.
connection.
So you're saying the basketball team, the boys basketball team?
Not their
have nipples
official-
hanging out of their shirt?
They're the practice jerseys.
During
So-
practice.
Right.
During
So
practice.
the practice jerseys, the uniforms have like the smaller armholes, but the practice jerseys are long and big.
So they're not
assume-
fitted properly?
No, I think it's a style of jersey that it is.
And I've also heard from other families that, girls flip flop uniforms, right? The skirts are very,
Or the
shorter
soccer
than
team
we
tucking their shorts
what we'd
into their-
allow on in school as well too.
Yeah, so I mean, I understand, you might be evolving.
So I'll put this, all your suggestions, email them out, and take care. Thanks.
We will come back.
We do have a student in the room, does the student want to chime in?
Awesome idea.
On anything on the dress code?
Yeah.
Not particularly that I can think of. I mean, I kind of genuinely agree with the idea of like, kind of, I think a broader, from what I can hear, the difference between the policy and the handbook, a broader policy and a much more specific handbook of laying things out individually, this, that, and then a more broader policy, but mostly I don't have any additional comment.
This kid's going to law school.
All right, so let's,
You
go
got
into
some
more
more
comments.
Sure, absolutely. And we'll talk to the admin about that and about the attendance.
So can I ask a clarifying question? So this is a policy, so the student dress code policy that's currently in the policy manual for BBRSD is a copy of what MASC recommended in August of 2022. And the school committee voted in December of 2022 to accept that policy. So this policy that's being presented aligns a little bit more with the handbook. So is a little more strict than with the current policy is. So I just want to clarify. So I guess I get confused as to when we're asked for recommendations, because this is a school committee policy, like where, it's just a clarifying question, like where do you want us to provide information and how far does that information? Because I think that's what happened with the handbook, because I presented a handbook that I thought was complete, but as a committee, you had questions, and so you have questions. So, but it's a school committee policy. Do you know what I mean? So I need to understand what my responsibility is when the questions are asked, because it's a policy. Do you understand?
I do understand exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
So, well, I mean, this policy didn't work, the current one, the GJICA, during, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying.
So
this
the
is-
idea for policy is if, I'll give you an example, Lisa or Rich or Renee say inappropriate clothing, you need to change it, they need to put something on it. And the parent, whatever happens, reprimand it out. The parent comes to me and says, what are you doing about this? I'm gonna bring my attorney, I'm gonna do whatever. I need to be able to say, as a school committee and as overseeing the school district, here's the policy that says I'm allowed to do this. That's the one thing that drives us, right? And that's one of the major responsibilities the school committee has, right? Hiring me, budget, and policy.
Yeah, so I'm saying like the one we passed before was not working
It wasn't.
logistically.
And that's why
so
we're here.
So now there's feedback. So I guess, I think we're supportive of what you gave us in terms of the new one, I think. But you
The
were just saying
language.
the private parts is what you had.
That was the
The
thing,
concern.
I just,
But we gotta live with this, right? So whatever policy you guys create for us, we gotta live with it day to day. So we're telling you what would make our lives so we can operate in a day-to-day basis. But whatever policy you guys decide is more protection for us.
So that's why we
Students
that's
show
why
up.
we did this as a first read, it's on both,
Yeah.
and so here we
the
are.
student
So-
shows up with a
Yeah,
parent
so
and
we're
our
gonna,
attorney.
we're gonna stop the conversation. You're gonna provide comments to Al. They'll figure it out and we'll come back.
Fair enough.
All right. Any new comments on there was one other policy that we're removing, any comments on that? All right, so then we're gonna move into our executive session now, and we will not return to open session after this. May I have a motion, please, to enter executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Purpose 3, discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation, MASC versus BRC. If you don't believe you may have a judgment with respect to the bargaining or litigating position, public body, and the chair so declares.
So, second.
I heard Megan and Lori seconded. All right, I will start here, Beth. Jess. Megan.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Lisa. All right, we're now in. Thank you.
We need to like bring in pizza.